ticket.
This one has typically worked.
Right to the court every time.
I get kicked off on this one. So
Oh. Hey, I heard you had everyone over at your restaurant after Lindon Days. That's cool of you.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Go on that one. Give
It
back.
thinks I've logged
Good
in,
for
I
you.
think.
It was a good
Yeah, well, it looks like you
hour
were there. And that was on
recap
this one,
meeting,
huh?
and then we had a nice lunch. So.
Get this
Did
one
you
back.
work
later.
on the
Important.
internal
Work
one?
through, review, what do we do well, what can we do? Because you wait 12 months, or you wait
I'm gonna try that one.
One
'Cause I think I have,
6 months
that's
to
10
talk
years
about
ago,
it.
that's our
Yeah.
30th anniversary. Now we got our 40th, so. Yeah, right.
It keeps us, so we can review it. When we put comments in there, we can review it later and not lose any time.
It's very cool.
Get my glasses.
How are you?
Good, good.
I'm counting on you to get us out of here early. It looks like a hefty meeting.
So what time is, let's guess what time.
My goal is to get us out of here before 7.
7?
And that whole stretch between
Yeah, it is 4:15.
Well, Adam said that there's a couple things that go off the agenda.
maybe the second block on Fifth Street, gas lamps.
Right, just the work session.
Yeah, it wasn't permanent, but the whole time I was there, it was closed down. So it's all split. Makes way more sense.
Good.
What dropped off?
You guys are
Yeah, well,
awesome.
it's dropped off.
Are you close to the park? I think I see, I'll tell you. I need to go through this. There's a bunch of them.
Go ahead. You're good?
Well, there's so much density that they want.
No,
What did he say?
you're way more important, Mary.
I'm sorry. Which one's dropped off?
He didn't say. He'll say walk us through it once we get there. You don't get to know. You gotta keep preparing.
Okay.
Straight to Pizza
You got a
Factory.
birthday month.
Straight to Pizza Factory. All right, welcome to our Lindon City Council meeting work session. Special thanks to the City Council for making time for this outside of our regular scheduled meeting, and a special thanks to the Evergreen Group for having some interest in our city. We will jump right into this concept review. And I believe, Mike, you'll be conducting, right? We'll invite you guys up if that's okay. Grab a third chair, and we'd love to have you up here.
Kind of feels like we're on trial. Not that I've ever been on trial, but
This is actually where we do our trial, so we can transition, do a 2-for-1.
Yeah, you're gonna go sit on that chair.
You'll be tracked by speed driving over here.
thank you.
Well, Councilman Hoyt, if you don't mind, I wanted to go through real quick and just kind of give a reminder where we're at. Kind of just go through our 700 North plan just briefly and
Perfect.
then turn the time over to the Evergreen Development folks. But I'll let them introduce themselves first if you want.
Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so I'm Matt Nielsen with Evergreen. I've been with Evergreen for 6 or 7 years now. So I run our retail platform here in Utah and Idaho, Wyoming. So we do everything from, single tenant Dutch Bros type work all the way up to larger shopping center development and redevelopment, ground up and existing stuff. We're redeveloping a center in Saratoga Springs right now, and then we have a number of smaller pads as well. So kind of the whole gambit of retail development. Oh, you got a microphone.
Yeah.
Jeremy Carver, been doing commercial development for over 20 years now, but love working at Evergreen. I've had experience developing in kind of major cities in the East Coast. I started working at Federal Realty, but I've been in this area. I worked for the church for a little while developing in Asia, and then I've been with Evergreen for about a year now developing. I mainly focus on apartments, but obviously Matt and I work together on these kind of projects that require multiple uses.
I'm Brian Anderson. I'm a commercial retail broker with CBRE. This is my 16th year doing that. CBRE is the largest commercial real estate company in the world. We work for, I think, 74 of the Fortune 100, and generally work with national users looking to move into communities like Lindon. So,
Great, thank you, Mike.
As a reminder, we worked on this 700 North plan. We adopted it April of 2021. We received a grant from UDOT to help us put this master plan together. We worked on this vision that, Lindon City, the 700 North corridor is envisioned as a gateway to our community. Prior to this, there was a citizen-led initiative that put a previous vision together. So, this area is important to us, and we all realize that as well. But we've always looked at it as it'll be developed as a community space with retail, restaurants, employment centers, services, and other experiential attractions to create an environment of a live, work, play community. We have a number of goals for this area to enhance it as a gateway, create a walkable town center, support economic development, and support future transit that'll come through there. So, we went into more detail on each one of those goals. I also provided those for you in your packet. One of the slides we spent the most time on with the Planning Commission and City Council was this page here. And that was the whole purpose of the 700 North Master Plan. It wasn't to show exactly where the building should go. It wasn't to design the project. It was to lay out a land use plan for the area. And so we created in that blue area, dark blue area or purple is the town center. And, our contract or our development agreement with Ivory, we're no longer using or no longer part of that deeper portion of 700 North because of the passing of time in the development agreement. And so that town center shrunk a little bit, as you can see in this corner area here that kind of points to the town center. That light blue area is more of a TOD or core area to help support the town center. Each one of these has a kind of a vision for that area. For example, the town center district is an active destination core with a vibrant mix of land uses, building and gathering areas, and talks about the importance of placemaking. The TOD core supports transit-oriented development. So in the future, the area is planned for bus rapid transit to go from Lehigh to Orem. And so that plan would have a station there at Anderson Boulevard and 700 North. It talks about how this district is centrally located around that future BRT. And then that flexible development area, this is something we got a lot of feedback from the council, is in the red, was to be more flexible in the types of commercial uses. It talks about it's envisioned to have a mix of primarily commercial businesses that provide retail, employment, and service needs for the region and community. So that's just kind of an overview quickly. There's some things that I'd like to talk about as we go through this discussion with Evergreen's plan. And I've provided you a little bit of feedback, but I think we need to hear from them, and then we can have a good discussion. So.
Great, we'll turn the time over to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And would you mind pulling up? Perfect. I didn't have to finish my sentence. I really appreciate all of you on the city council. I know you guys do a great service for this area. It's a beautiful city. And I also appreciate Mike Florence. We've gone through 13 different site plans at this point and 3 different architects. So he's been very helpful in kind of guiding us and giving us direction. We hope, this is a working session. So we hope it's an opportunity for you guys to let us know your thoughts. We can incorporate those at more of an informal setting to be able to just come up with the town center that I think everybody will be comfortable with and everybody will enjoy. Maybe just start with the next slide. So, Evergreen was started in 1974, 2 years before I was born. Done over 600 projects across the U.S., offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, and then in Salt Lake City. Never defaulted on a loan or any kind of financial arrangement. You can see the 2 older gentlemen. Those are the founders. They're still 2 out of the 4 members of the partners. So very much involved. Skip was here just this last week, kind of going over different properties that we have. So honest, good guys. Just kind of a quick background on Evergreen. So we'll go to the next slide. So you know, Evergreen's done a lot of different projects. You know, the first 35 years of Evergreen was just as a retail developer, really. It's just been the last 10 years that we've gotten into apartments. We developed about 3,500 apartments, but a lot more retail. So of those, you know, 600 projects, probably 580 of them are retail projects. So this is a center that we have in Eastbridge Town Center, Denver area. You can go to the next slide. This gives a few more pictures of that same project. King Soopers.
Yeah, this side was actually really cool. It was the former airport in Denver, and we did King Soopers there, and obviously we wanted to make it something really nice for the community, in addition to the King Soopers and kind of your traditional retail uses that you can see in the bottom right corner there. So we ended up building pretty much half an airplane, as you can see right there. And at the base of the airplane, there's an ice cream shop called Little Man Ice Cream. And so it's been a really cool feature for the community and just kind of a throwback to the airport and everything around there. And the walls, which aren't shown here, just all around the development are old pictures of the airport and really cool iconic imagery and things like that. And then you can see that patio area of Eastbridge with, you know, the seating and the fireplace and stuff. So it's a project we were proud of because we were able to blend some of the traditional retail uses with kind of a cool, fun little placemaking area.
And you go to the next slide. No, it's going to take a minute. Yeah, so this one's a Sprouts Anchored Center. We've partnered with Sprouts in quite a few different locations. You know, not pictured here, we have a 110-acre development in Wheat Ridge that includes a 26-acre health campus, hotel, restaurant, retail apartments, and recreational public space. We also have a 25-acre project called Outlook Gateway that includes a Sprouts, and the last one, 9 Mile in Erie, that includes the King Soopers. So we can just go to the next slide, but I'm trying to keep the slide deck. This is 20 megabytes, so I didn't want to make it too much larger, but this is our team here. Eddie was with Big D for several years, great construction mind. Matt, obviously, and myself. Go to the next slide. So these are some of the projects that Matt and I have completed here in Utah. You know, we worked with Mill Creek to put together a plan for their town center. You know, their ice skating rink's under construction now, but, you know, we built 550 apartment units. That was on about 5 acres there. So a much denser kind of project, you know, 5/2 construction. And they're actually, you know, they have another 4 or 5 projects right now that are under construction, each about 250 to 400 units. So they're really, at least, you know, if you talk to Mike Winder, he's kind of their head of economic development. His main thing was like, we got to get the people here to make this a town center. You know, it's really the difference between a business park and a town center. You know, business park, kind of just more of a place, you know, during the day that does well. If you look at like the restaurants in Lehigh and all that, they do great lunchtime traffic, but there's just no real nightlife there because the people aren't there. So, you know, we feel like it's a really important component to have people in addition to just employees. So you can go to the next one.
This is that Saratoga Springs project I was mentioning. This project is less about placemaking and more just filling a need of the city. Vasa Fitness was located across the street in a really small 20,000 square foot box, and they have, I think, about 10,000 members in the Saratoga area, so they just didn't have the room for it. And so we worked pretty closely with the city to try to find a new location for them, and this was a former Smith Center. Smith's relocated down the street, so we bought the entire center, put Vasa in, and we've redone, you know, parking lot, facade, some of the out parcels, fixed it up. It was a property the landlord hadn't really touched in 10 plus years, so redoing landscaping and kind of turning what was an eyesore into more of an updated center. So it's turned out to be a nice little project for us.
Probably have the wrong date. That'll probably be done by 2023. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the slide that Brian put together. Brian obviously is super familiar with this market. Any just thoughts, Brian, you want to just, what this slide kind of tells us?
Yeah, so just to walk everybody through this. So the Star is the site we're talking about on 7th here at some point when we get to it. And this shows every square foot of real estate that can be reached within a 10-minute drive from that site. So obviously it's everything on the west side of the freeway and nearly everything going up to the east side. And then, so when a retail user looks at marketplace, they say, okay, like how many people are there? and how many different user types that are competing with us can those people reasonably reach. In our preliminary conversations with Mayor Lundberg, there was an interest expressed in a more market-style grocery location, not necessarily just another Walmart or a Kroger or a Macy's, but something that was perhaps a little cleaner, fresher, nicer, smaller footprint, neighborhood-centric. So this exercise is in relation to that, to define, okay, the people who live here, how much food and grocery and service can they reasonably get to, and is there a vacuum here that we can fill?
So we can go to the next slide, Mike. So this is kind of our, our plan for the site that we've put together. You can see, we've had quite a bit of interest from actually a few different hotel flags. We have actually Hilton and a Marriott brand that's going to be coming to town next week to look at the site. But we've had a lot of other flags that are super interested. I feel like that brings, some traffic to the area during the day, and somebody that's interested to kind of go and explore the area at night. You can see along the frontage there, we have had a lot of interest from different retail pads. So each, you can see just in that area, there's about 12 different retail pads. And we feel like, initially, if you talk to Mike, Florence, or other people, initially we had a lot more retail on that first parcel. Because right now, the way we've kind of contemplated is we're thinking that, first block would be kind of phase one. We hope the office on the other side might be a part of phase 1, too. And then maybe do you have like a way to circle that on there, Mike? Or maybe that's more helpful.
When you say first block, what do you?
Going left to right, correct? Yeah, why don't you go up there? Stan?
You want me to go, Stan?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, they don't?
Get out of control, Jeremy.
Oh, I'll just.
Not a bamboo sticks or something. Go back because we have
So,
much technology.
initially, we've had some office kind of interest, and we've had a ton of retail pad interest. This inline retail, initially, we were trying to put on this side, and we really, like Brian was saying, we really reached out to, a lot of different grocers. Their refrain was very similar, was that not having that depth is a real problem for them. That used to be in the town center, but it's gotten taken away, unfortunately, just because they like to have those big parking fields. If you think about, Harmon's or these other grocery stores, they have that. That's a pretty common thing for most of the larger anchors. We feel like to get kind of this retail going, this retail, as it succeeds and does well and brings people here and they can see a sense of place, that this additional retail will be able to come in the future. So, I know I talked a couple days ago what's going on the north side. None of that really speaks too much confidence to a retail user. There's already kind of office all along this corridor. And so we feel like getting these retail pads in here is crucial. We feel like this part and the apartments is really important towards providing a 2.5 acre park. We'd provide that to the city as part of this opportunity. Mike had said that he'd prefer to have it kind of in this center section. That's where it's shown in the master plan. There's other ways where you can orient it in here. There's some advantages to having it in the middle of the largest block. This is 25 acres, this is 5 acres, and this is 10 acres, just using kind of round numbers. But we can put it here. As far as the programming goes for that town center, we'd really like, your feedback to tell us, is pickleball courts there, a food truck area, a place for concerts, whatever you guys would think would be best for the city. We're very open to that. But anyway, this kind of speaks a little bit to, the types of uses. This is a rendering that we did on a project in Colorado. It could be very similar. These are, each of these are 51 units. So if you add those up, that's 306 units. I know for Jake, I think I just saw a snarl a little bit. I've watched some of these past meetings, so I know that, multifamily, is kind of a tough part of the project. For us, just to make the economics work, you really have to have the retail pads and those 300 units to be able to have that 2.5 acre park. The office is kind of more break even, but between the retail pads and the multifamily, that's really what drives the economics of the project. And so I think that's, do you have anything else, Matt or Brian? And also Ron's here, so if you guys have any questions for him, he's been great to work with, and obviously a face that you guys know, and so I think that's all that I have, though.
Absolutely. Mike, you wanted to add anything to their presentation?
Yeah, I want to go back to the 700 North Master Plan, and I really appreciate working with Evergreen Development. They've been great. They've been patient in working with me, and then also they've been great when the mayor and I met with them at ICSC, and we appreciate them. One of the things we've tried to focus on with Evergreen is this town center area. That's been important, I think, as we went through the master plan, this town center and TOD area. I still think it needs some work. If you go back to this plan, we're hoping it's so much more than just a 2-acre park, that it's really buildings around the park, that it's an activated mixed-use space, that this is kind of segmented by itself. And I know they've said that it can be designed how we want. They want feedback on it. I think our master plan's got some good aspects to it that can help guide that. A couple other things, the multifamily, I know it, like if you look at it, it takes up 10 acres, but I was hoping, at least in my personal opinion, that maybe it was around that town center area a little bit more, that it's a little bit closer to the BRT, future BRT station or future mass transit. And so I outlined just a couple things in your report that, that I think we should look at, that, we used a lot of public funds to help with that master plan, and I hope we can, try to come as close to it as possible.
Yeah, I would just, and I don't know, am I allowed to speak right now, Mike? Or?
You bet.
Okay, just make sure.
Silence.
The town center is mobile. I think like I said, I think initially we've had it on both sides of Anderson. That does create some problems with kind of foot traffic getting back and forth, but we also had it in the center of that kind of western parcel. So, yeah, any feedback you guys have on that would be great. We'd like to put together something that you guys would like, and that would be in your best interest. So.
And just to add some color to this, so the way this site plan lays out, again, like it's a little bit of a Tetris puzzle where things can be moved around. The right side of the town center, there's a red box that says retail. That box is big enough that we could squeeze a market-sized grocer 20 to 30,000 feet. Harmon's came back and said, yes, we would do this deal, but we can't lay out the store. It's not deep enough. We can't get the parking in front, and we're not going to turn the building sideways to do it, which was the argument I made, that what's the difference, but they did not agree. So there is an avenue here to get shopping, food, and services here. There is a pretty considerable lack of that on Pleasant Grove Boulevard, and there's considerable white-collar jobs there that need to eat something besides R&R. So I feel like there's an avenue to pull them this way and get those dollars out of their pockets. And then if there's a point where there is enough housing here and south of here, that it kind of frames in at a later point a smaller area where we can put a grocer in or a small box retail project. That is something down the line, but right now, again, with getting a 50 to 60 to 80,000 foot prototype grocer is a non-starter. Getting a smaller one later when we've got some critical mass of bodies and population might be a discussion. But that's kind of the avenue to get this to being a walkable, cool spot, is you have to have bodies there.
And if you talk to Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but right now, at the current traffic counts, that area doesn't have enough traffic for a traffic light. So obviously retail tenants don't follow the standards for traffic light requirements, but they actually are kind of loosely related, right? If there's not enough for a traffic light. And so we feel like as you have some of those pads, you're gonna increase the traffic counts, and it'll just make the retail center to the east of the town center a lot easier to fill. Right now, I mean, Brian has marketed for about 4 months. We've been primarily focused on anchors. You know, usually you get the anchors and then the rest will come. And it's, you know, at this point, we just haven't been able to find a lot of anchor tenants. We feel like by doing this first part that has the pads and that'll drive some of the traffic, necessitate a traffic light. You'll have that north side filled in, and then you'll be able to get, you know, like the Trader Joe's or kind of more specialty size, 30,000 square foot, as Brian's talking about.
Yep. For sure. I mean, our goal was to come in here with an anchor, right? Our goal is to sit down and be like, hey guys, you know, guess what? We have this amazing anchor. And unfortunately, we fell short of that after marketing it for the last 4 or 5 months or so. But we do believe in the long-term viability for this center as retail. I mean, we think down the road it does come. Retail tenants are notoriously very visual, and they get in their cars and they drive around, they look at sites, and today we were passed on by every single retail anchor that we showed it to. But we do think that, you know, a couple years down the road, 5 years, however long it is at this area, it is a retail center. It's just a matter of when that actually comes and how we can help, you know, get people over the hump and get them interested in the area.
I just want to make sure everybody's oriented as well. So this is Anderson Boulevard. Oh, sorry. This is Anderson Boulevard here. So this would be the area for the town center. This is 1200 West. I think that's the street. 1200 West. You've got the rail line here on the other side of the office to the east side, and then you got 1700 West over on the other side. I should have went through that earlier. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, Brian touched on this for a second. He mentioned the word walkable, and you know that's the purpose of that town center, is to be be that gateway, be that amenity-driven area. I hope the plan that we eventually come out with that, you know, is more walkable. I mean, this is a lot of vehicle trips just throughout the development. I think as you look at that town center area, you know, what can we do to really make it a walkable town center? So.
And one thing that we did try to do here is, if you kind of look at the apartment buildings, you know, we're conscious of the residential homes to the south. So they're all kind of oriented on their skinny side facing the residences, you know, instead of facing them longwise, just so they don't see a large portion of the building. You know, retail, you really have to orient it towards 700 North, so those retail buildings are kind of flat that way. But the apartments, we oriented with the skinny side facing the single-family homes there, so they have as little impact as possible. But I mean, this project, and then obviously the one that Ivory has with the multifamily coming in, I think that'll add some of the kind of the daytime traffic that you need to kind of make one of these work.
Give us a little more information on the multifamily, kind of deep dive there for us. I know there's several exhibits and that there's several options,
Yeah.
But roughly what the end units ends up being, how many levels, maybe a price point of what you're imagining, you know, some of your other projects, amenities.
Sure.
Walk us through those. Give us some information.
Yeah, and this will be, I mean, a rich amenity area. We always over amenitize these. It'd be a 4-story elevator served property. So, you know, a lot of the properties in this area are really kind of walk-up apartments that are much less desirable. The price points are usually about 20% below where we are here. So, you know, the average square footage we're projecting is about 900 square feet, and we're anticipating rents to be around $1,600 per month. So it's going to be, you know, a very high-end product. It'll be above and beyond what, you know, the current apartments in the area make. You know, in my past, I developed properties, a couple different projects in Sugar House and a couple in Mill Creek. And it was always interesting because a lot of our residents in Sugar House were, you know, Lehigh kind of tech center employees, but there just wasn't this higher end apartment that they were used to seeing. So, you know, we have right now the projects that we built there, Park Avenue and Sugarmont, those are the two highest rent properties in all of Utah. And so that's kind of the level of quality that we deliver on. The amenities there, I'd be happy to go on a tour with city council or anybody who thinks it'd be valuable, just to show them what quality of amenities that we think are, that's what drives the rents in these areas, really, is those amenities and what you provide.
A couple notes on that. When Jeremy says 4-story apartment served, if an apartment building is only 3 stories, ADA does not require an apartment or an elevator. So once you go over 4, it just gets more expensive to build. And they stopped at 4 stories. My understanding is because this city code, any higher than that would be problematic. You can build 5 stories with wood. You can't build 6, as far as I know, understanding the physics of the world we live in, without adding concrete and steel. But that's what he's meaning when he says elevator served.
Yeah, I think that's right. But yeah, 4-story is kind of what we were told we'd be able to get here. And generally, if you're 4 stories, you aren't doing, you know, because at least in our other projects, you know, it's like 5 levels over 2. So like in Mill Creek, we needed 75 feet of height. And so because the 2 levels will be above ground, as soon as those parking starts going below grade, it just gets super expensive. But on 4-story, you know, usually that's going to be, you know, and there is parking. I mean, part of this, you know, there is a lot of street, but that's really what, you know, unfortunately, retail still requires a lot of parking, you know, especially restaurants, 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. So that's a heavy use. We have tried to arrange it, and there'll be more landscaping and other things like that. We have a little pocket park you can kind of see, you know, across from the town center. There'll be little pocket parks that'll add some greenery and make this a beautiful area. But there's a lot of parking stalls.
Well, appreciate the presentation. What we'll do now is we'll bring it up here and kind of go through the council, let them ask the questions they have of you. I'm sure they have a few.
Yeah, and if there's any specific retail questions, I have a 7-year-old. My daughter turned 7 today, and we have her birthday party tonight. So I told her I would be there, obviously. So I need to take off the next couple minutes. So if there's anything specific to retail, I'm happy to answer that, and then I'll take off if that's okay with you, and then Jeremy will
Let's
take
do
over.
that. Let's start with retail-specific questions first. I have one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Mayor Lundberg called me prior to this meeting about a week ago on one of the hotel users, had some concerns there, longer-term rentals, longer-term hotel stays. Is that the user that's still online? What's our thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would rather have, you know, a Marriott or kind of Hilton flag. The one that is there, though, I mean, it's, you know, we could pull up their prototypes. I think you were Mike was in the meeting when we showed what the prototype would look like. But, you know, the rents there are more like, you know, $85, whereas the extended stay, you know, that's 10 years old, it's like a $45 project. So I think you have to realize there is a movement right now across America towards all different kinds of living, honestly. There's, you know, if you talk to people 20 years ago and said, oh, you're bringing apartments in, they'd be like, oh, you know, 8-foot ceilings, you know, terrible tenants. And that's not who's renting here. Now it's, you know, Lindon residents that have kids that can't afford a $600,000 home. They're making good incomes, you know, doing well, but they need an option of a place to live. And extended stays are similar to that, where, you know, the older kind of extended stays were just, you know, a much more economy brand. And when you're charging $40 a month, or $40 a day, I should say, you're not able to keep up the building. So then it's kind of now all of a sudden you've got 10-year-old carpet, you've got, you know, so these prototypes that are getting built nowadays are a lot nicer. Similar to, you know, the church is building the single-family homes for rent. Same thing, before nobody was building single-family homes for rent, they're building, you know, 364 units in Riverton that'll have, you know, a splash pad, lazy river, you know, super high-end single-family homes for rent. So it's the quality of product that's being built today, which just because the costs are high, is just a much higher quality. So yeah.
To elaborate on, so there is a written proposal from a 2 extended stay hotel group, national group, high quality But to Jeremy's point he made earlier, other hotel groups have scheduled site visits and tours. We don't have written proposals for them yet.
Yeah, I think I had mentioned in our meeting, I sort of forewarned you, if that was the
Yeah.
right word,
I
in a
think that's
nice
right.
way, of course, but.
Yeah.
You know, I'm far more open to the residential component than some of my compadres, which is fine. Although I do feel that the extended stays, done some more research on that. I think we had our police chief and even our former police chief who's now in Orem. You know, and try as you might, these extended stays just inevitably degrade into something that we just don't really want to see. And so I can go on record as saying I'm not overly excited about extended stays. Recognize the price points are lower, but my personal experience with extended stays is we travel a fair amount, and almost without exception, regardless of where we go, what you end up getting is contractors. Nothing wrong with contractors.
Railroads and
Not
all
at all.
those guys.
Yeah, railroads, construction workers, you get that kind of clientele, which, again, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the experience has been that those kinds of things inevitably have challenges that you wouldn't normally have in say, a Marriott or a Hilton product. So while I recognize the gentleman that was here, I can't remember his name, the older gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that represented the lodging component. I think we tried to explain to him, I'm not sure he was internalizing it the way that we had hoped that he would. So it'll be interesting to see how these other flags, the upper, a little bit more
Traditional hotel.
upgraded flags would be. I think that's something that I would have a little bit of an issue with, just so you'll know.
Well, currently at least, and if, I don't know what's gonna happen to the site long-term, if we're gonna be the group or somebody else would be, taking down, obviously 40 acres is a large site, I think if what's happened across the street is an indicator, then, any kind of hotel right now, I think is allowed by right in this area. So I think, they could potentially purchase 5 acres, whatever, and then they would be able to move forward. But I kind of understand your fear. I think Lindon, is a different city than, South Salt Lake or other areas that have, problems with extended stay. And I think that the extended stay clientele here will be different than what you'll have there.
I apologize, I gotta run out. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you.
Brian knows retail, so he'll,
Well, we'll text you if we have any other
Thank you.
questions.
Any other hotel-related questions?
For what it's
Noted on that.
worth, I like the hotel use idea on this project. When
Yeah.
I saw it, when I heard hotel, frankly, I'm not familiar with extended stay, but when I heard a hotel, I was like, yes, that seems like a great use for this area. I like that it's on the western part. It feeds into that Pleasant Grove Boulevard. I think it's a great use. But I do think that the mayor shares a very similar opinion to Mike's of her concerns.
Hotels are great. They literally bring money from out of town and spend it here.
And what we've found out, honestly, I have a few different friends that have a lot of rental properties, and a lot of times, the majority of what they're renting out, and the average stay of these extended stay hotels is like 1.8 weeks, so it's a shorter time, but traveling nurses and other things like that are a very common user, extended stay hotels. There's a lot of different uses. People coming to town that, are just gonna stay here, go to their kid's graduation for a week, want that option. But at $80 a night, that's a high enough price point that I think some of the less desirable users will find a lot of other options that are a lot cheaper and a lot older that are, easier.
Not suggesting that it's an automatic deal killer, but
Yeah.
I think you get
No, I
a lot.
appreciate
I
that.
think you get a lot further with the planning commission and with this group if you would focus more on them.
And I think that comment's been brought up to me a couple times. Well, they're just allowed by right. Well, yeah, they are, but this overall development's asking for 300 residential units. So you're asking us to give in on something, and so,
Yeah.
I think, that's at least where I've been coming from on this.
in the interest of time, we do have about 20 minutes left. I'd like for the council to be able to get their questions out and then hopefully give you a little bit of direction, which is really the goal for these types of work sessions and concept reviews. Daryl, let's start with you. Is there any questions you have for the potential applicants?
Currently, they might have evolve as we have the next few minutes.
Okay, Mike, any questions?
No, not right now. I got a pretty good feel for what they were attempting to do, or what they were suggesting. It's sitting in the DRC meeting with them.
Thanks.
A week or two, a couple weeks ago.
I do have a couple questions. The smaller retail pad, and maybe I was typing some notes during that. What was the vision for a potential tenant?
Central one?
Yes, the one just to the left of the town center. Yep, right there. What was was there any potential, I mean, what is your vision for that one?
So
What type
the
of
crosshatched
users?
area to the right and in the lower right-hand corner of that is a plaza type space, and then the North Anderson Boulevard is the idea is to make that a promenade, like a very well manicured, nicely finished street area where there is traffic, but it's highly controlled. This is all theoretical, but if this were to come together like that, it'd almost certainly be a sit-down restaurant on the top of that patio area with some seating outside, another small restaurant to the left of it, and then shop space, medical users going the other direction. Everything from other food users to we actually have a lot of demand from like orthodontists and dentists to slide into these places. I don't think this is a place that they would go. There's not enough space here, but space like this, new space, Class A space next to housing, commands a high rent. So you end up with a nicely amenitied center.
Jake, I did have one more thought. You mentioned Trader Joe's. Obviously, that would be a plum of epic proportions.
Yeah.
I don't know that you actually have them on the hook, but compared to, say, a supermarket like a Harmon's, my sense is that their requirements wouldn't be quite as large, their need wouldn't be quite as large. I'm trying to think of the one down in Orem.
They tend to be 10,000 feet.
Say again?
They tend to take 10 to 12,000 feet.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, parking-wise, I'm wondering if that depth issue would be an issue for them.
So Trader Joe's specifically is a little bit of a unicorn, where they would wait until this entire thing was done and it was impossible to squeeze them in, and then call and say, hey, we'd like to be there, which is what they did to University Parkway. It's what they did to Fourth South. It's what they did to Fort Union.
Good to know.
They do enormous revenue out of their stores, and they're everybody's favorite grocer. I did call them on this. They said, well, sorry, Brian, not right. Not now. It's too. They look at it on Google Earth and see an alfalfa field. If it were a downtown inner city core site, then maybe. But they've been negotiating confidentially for almost 2 years for the Whole Foods on 114th and Sandy, and they haven't got that deal done yet. So they are notoriously difficult to deal with.
Appreciate you making calls. That's great.
Lee's Marketplace right now is our best bet, and they have concerns about being on the wrong side of State Street from Walmart and Smith's and Macy's. But they're not saying no, they're just stretched thin right now. But they have done an urban store on 4th West in Salt Lake next to West High School.
What is it called?
Lee's Marketplace, they're out of Logan. They've got, 15 stores. So we're still trying, but we want to get somebody who's cool and has nice stuff and fresh and a deli.
Cool. Residential units, did you mention that? Was it 300? Is 300 the number that's being proposed? 306?
306, yeah, there are 5 51-unit buildings. We've done these all over Denver and Phoenix. I could give you underneath that picture, there's another picture. There's lots of different options for colors and all that, but there's you actually just have to clip on it, Mike, and then you scoot it over. There you go. There's
Done.
other,
Hidden.
So, but anyway, there's,
Those units, or do you sell those units?
we rent them, yeah, so that's right around $1,600.
And you maintain ownership and
We maintain
care of
ownership.
the
And really,
building?
if you ask any, I used to work for Cottonwood Residential, so we had 35,000 units we managed. 300 units is really the optimum efficiency, where you can have one really nice big pool, you can have a super high-end fitness center, you can have amenities and you don't have to duplicate it. You know, when you get over, so 300 units is kind of a sweet spot as far as the most profitable. You can have one property manager. You know, you don't have too much staff, you don't have too many amenities, so it's a.
What's the square footage on your units?
They average right around 900 square feet. So
One bedroom, two bedroom?
Yeah, there's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The mix between 1 and 2 is about 50-50. So, you know, on this size, it would be about 135 one bedrooms, 135 2 bedrooms, and then about 30 3 bedrooms.
So when he talks about 1,600 a unit on average, so if your average unit's 900 square feet, apartment rents get broken down into per foot per month rent. So quick math is about $1.75 a foot.
Yeah, that's right.
So for comparison, Lehigh apartments are closer to $275. Downtown Salt Lake's $340. So this is still an expensive unit for South Utah County, but it is not. Sorry, apologize. I would never put you with Spanish Fork.
Okay, just a delineation.
It is in the band of what people pay to live in this part of the world. It's not extraneous, so.
I'm not seeing amenities on here. Are you counting the town, what you're calling the town centers, where some of your amenities might be located and that they would be a part of what you're
Yes.
offering to your potential residents?
It's a great question. So if you see that little L-shaped building that is kind of, it's in between. So there's a clubhouse and that's a clubhouse. So we always like to have is you drive up to the clubhouse, you have glass. So right as you pull in, you can see right into the pool area and everything directly behind it. So that's what we always do in our projects. It's, you know, that first they say your first, 5 to 10 seconds decides whether you're going to live there or not. So beautiful pool right behind there, and that's the whole courtyard area. And then in between those 51 unit, each of those there's a kind of a nice courtyard area that'll be a green space that'll connect the two buildings together. But the majority right now of the amenity space will be in that L-shaped building, and then and in that area right there.
Randy, do you have an airplane laying around they can put up in the air?
An airplane?
Yeah.
I have piloted an airplane before.
Hot day.
From a family of, small plane enthusiasts. But no, I don't have a plane.
My son just flew one for the first time a couple weeks ago, 16-year-old. Well, he's on the plane with somebody.
First off, I want to say thanks for your time and your interest in Lindon. This has been great to kind of get to know Evergreen and kind of walk this path with you. I have several questions and try to keep them really quick and concise, and that is that on your town center, your concept seems to be extremely vague and probably considerably different from what our plan has shown you, that the concepts we'd like to see. We have just not too far from there, we do have a large city park that has come through because of Ivory, where we have pickle courts, basketball courts, a lot of amenities that service that area of town and would easily service additional occupants and residents. My concern is that it's extremely vague. And vague is being generous and saying that's vague because it's so vague you might as well just leave it dirt. It's that vague to me. So what your concept would be is a concern of mine. So we probably don't have time to go into what that is, but I will say that is probably a giant concern for me.
Oh, that's great.
That's one of the reasons we're here, is to find out what you want.
Perfect, yeah.
This is exactly what we want to hear.
What we need to see.
Yeah, so like you showed some of the concepts in Denver and some of your other cities where there was things to do there within that is being provided by the developer in conjunction with the city. But to me, I've never ever visualized it to be greenscape in a park. I mean, might be something to go do there, but not, we have a city park just right out over your left shoulder there and just down over the hill. So that, to me, is where our city center park is, and that's actually what it's called, so.
What would you like it to be?
A lot of things are explained pretty detailed, and I'm really comfortable with the things that are in our plan already.
Master plan.
Yep, and the master plan articulates that extremely well, and I'm really pleased with all the efforts that have gone into putting that together. And so I'm really curious to see maybe what you would envision after taking into consideration what the master plan or what the plan looks like, and seeing what you come up with. I mean, we've had, I just know that I've seen some of your portfolios and your portfolio, and that you've got some good things, and I'd like to see what it is outside of Greenscape, so.
When we talked to the mayor, she mentioned a couple of things, you know, having a place for concerts, having food trucks, those were a couple of ideas she had. You know, I've had other, just if you go into, you know, other parts of the country, there's, you know, huge rock climbing parks that have actually started popping up in areas, and there's other things like that that are built in that are, so, yeah, I kind of wanted to see, I guess, you know, I know the plan says one thing, but if, you know, if you guys as city council have, you know, we really need X, you know, then that would be something we would definitely want to incorporate in.
Here's what I'm viewing in my mind, rather than building stuff and then hope they'll come to the city center or the town center, is have a town center that is a destination location, that people will want to come there, whether it be a rock climbing wall, whether it be a performance venue, you know, whether it be whatever it might be. I think that's the concept that's the concept we're looking for. I mean, that's the key. That's really the key, is let that be the destination location, and then by right, naturally, then the other places would be frequented.
With splash pads or something like that, you already have that too, or?
We don't have splash pads.
Don't have splash pads.
Okay. And food trucks you have, or?
Food trucks next to the splash pad.
We have food trucks, but
Here and there,
they're
but-
scattered. They're
Gathered into
yeah,
one
they're not-
place where a lot of people could
There's
go.
lots of wonderful examples that I know that you guys can come up with something good.
Fine,
I-
Randy, whatever.
Pardon?
We'll come back with
Well,
cool
I know
ideas.
that there's a lot of people who are fans of food, so, but I'd like to actually sit down at a place. I don't want to, for me, I have mobility problems. I'd like to sit and order if possible. I don't want to stand at a truck. Not to say I'm not available to do that any given time, especially on Thursday nights in our city park down here when we have our food round, our food
Something
truck runs.
magical.
Yes, that'd be
Something
lovely.
magic, yeah.
As Mike Florence was giving his portion of this presentation or commenting, or getting us accustomed to what it is you're doing here, he said, I can't even count how many times he said the word commercial. I will say this is very underwhelming on commercial for me. I'd love to see way more. I understand, especially you, Jeremy, with your, swing towards the apartments and all those kind of things. And my fellow council members know that I can be pro apartments, but I will make it very clear that on this particular corridor, I'm very not. So anything that he was rolling his eyes to, put that a few more times more, and that's me, on this corridor right here.
That was.
Huh?
No, go
Well,
ahead.
I could only see your back,
Could
so.
have wrongfully accused you, I
So,
apologize.
if you were scoffing, then I was scoffing along with you. But, so I'm not thrilled with the number of units. I love the project, the amenities you're proposing for those. Those are all the things I love and I would be a proponent for. But these really, I would love to see all of those numbers of 51 that's 51 retail establishments, I don't know. And
Yeah.
I'd love to see something more. So then you also brought up Sprouts, which I'm a big fan of. Sprouts is something I would love to see in Lindon, and I know that people might say, well, it maybe is a different, a close competitor with Trader Joe's. Well, they're in very close proximity in Orem to each other, the Sprouts and the Trader Joe's, and maybe that would be a draw, that we do have a kind of a vacuum of that type of a retailer, a more fresh vegetable kind of a market. I'll travel clear to Orem to go to Sprouts and Trader Joe's for those kind of things. So I know people would travel to go there. So that would be, I know time is short and I want to leave some for Van. So I will just, I'll leave some for Van and maybe ask if, see if I have any more questions or comments.
Thank you, Randy.
And I would have probably echoed the same things with the town center as being that place of destination, the driving force, the residential. Yes, we discuss that all of the time. And I'm going to put Mike Florence on the spot here, or Adam. The high-density apartments that Ivory is doing, or ICO, what is kind of their time frame, and what were the numbers that have been approved at this point? Save me from going back and looking.
So we've been working with them actively. Their timeframe is they want to start next year. I think they're at 2 or 3.
This location's obviously very different from Santana Row. Average income's, over 250,000 right around that area, and Valley's very different. So we feel like this that we propose would be a beautiful center that would match kind of what you know, what Lindon would be great for Lindon, and I think, yeah, that's kind of our thoughts.
Randy, can I weigh in on Sprouts?
Pardon me?
Can I talk about Sprouts
Please,
for 30
please,
seconds? So I did talk to them. Evergreen's had a better relationship with them than I do, but I have a very good one. Currently, they've told me they're not expanding in Utah because they do lack the distribution facility to deliver more fresh food. The fresh food companies have the main reason it's more expensive to buy that from them is because they have to keep everything cold so much more than everybody else does. So they have large distribution facilities, and they are tapped out on what they can physically deliver from the coast to Utah without it going bad.
Unprecedented times we live in.
Yeah, it's like $100 million solution that they're trying to figure out, so.
Okay, for the sake of time, what I'd like to do now with our final 5 minutes, that clock's just a hair fast, is from the council, what can you give them to move this forward? Are there things you need to see in order to move you forward to that yes, to that this works for me? Or if it is, hey, I am a no and this is not going to work, let's tell them now. And let's not waste anyone's time, theirs or ours. Is there anyone with anything that they'd like to put before them?
Start us off, Jake.
For me, I always have a three-prong approach to 700 North Corridor. We originally paid a lot of money. We're still in debt on the 700 North, I believe. We just paid it off, yes. Congratulations, Lindon City. Spent a lot of money, paid a lot of interest. We didn't have one single residential piece on this in the beginning. But I understand and I recognize, and I think this council recognizes that there needs to be a residential component. And we've always looked at that as the carrot for commercial. And so for me, it's always been a commercial project with residential, not a residential project with commercial. And so that's where I come from. The second prong being high-end, classy with that wow factor. I think several council members talked about with the town center, but also just the project overall. I look at that Scoopers, incredible. That's what we're talking about, and it's great to know. I always have concerns when someone comes in here and hasn't done something like that, hasn't checked that mark ever. You guys have checked that. That's what we're looking for, certainly, and then just the sheer number of when it comes to residential. And so I think we'll need to work on that number personally, but that's where I'm at, and I recognize it's tough because it's a chicken or the egg scenario, right? We want commercial, we need the residential to get the commercial, and so I recognize that. We've been burned in the past a little bit. The way I'm looking at it is we're just looking at that block. For 300 units of residential, we get this retail, because frankly, by just doing that first block, we don't know what would happen on this, and we've had plenty of times where we concede expecting future commercial development and it never comes, and they come back and ask for more residential. And so,
we do feel like the retail pads that we could do, you know, right now there's 11 of them there. We feel really confident that those would be able to be marketed.
Really excited about
today.
those.
Yeah.
Someone who, both lunch and dinner, find myself in that area a lot, spending my money. So, what else, council? We've got 2 minutes.
Ditto to what Jake just said.
I would feel, of course, again, I'm a little bit more open to the residential component, but I do think that we do, before I would even consider that number, I would really like to see the retail component beefed up. Again, it is a chicken and an egg thing, but it's great having a lot of, small retailers, which is cool, boutique type retailers, but again, it may be an impossible ask, but it sure would be helpful if we had at least a pretty good idea of who some of the larger retail tax generating entities might be. I know you maybe can't give that answer to us this week or next week, but
I could lie to you, Mike, and just tell you somebody, sure.
no, of course, that's not what we're suggesting.
No,
But again, I fully understand there's got to be a residential component to make the project work. But again, I don't think we want to lead with the residential in the hopes that if you build it, then the commercial will come. Again, and then the idea of beefing up the town center, having something a little bit more than just a concept, having maybe a little bit more definitive ideas as to what that would look like. So, yeah, I'm all for it. It's a wonderful project. I think it's gonna be great. But, you know, there are some boxes that need to be checked, so.
Okay, for me, it's, I know the economy that we're in and that residential is the driving force of everything, but I'll have to echo what Jake had to say, that I'm afraid of something coming in and not completing a project and giving us the things that we're needing. I'm pretty articulate about the fact that we really need a town center concept to see what Evergreen is envisioning. I think we've been pretty clear about what it is we'd like to see. I'd love to see your imagination, and I don't know how many words I can get per minute, but that's my 60 seconds.
And anything to, okay. What I'd like to invite the councils to as well, this is our first opportunity to really interact with you guys and see these. Let's email Mike any of these more ideas as we, you know, a lot of times I get home at night and I think, oh, I should have said that. We'll just try to communicate as much and be as transparent as we possibly can. Adam.
Just really quick, in your staff report, there was a couple other concept plans that we presented that Evergreen had provided. In a few of those, that town center was split between a roadway. As staff, I'm seeing Randy shake her head no. I just want to make sure that they have clear direction. That is not preferred by staff. Is that the same with the council?
Yeah.
Would you rather the location be on the first block, or we're in that second block where it currently is? Any preference as far as that goes?
On the west side of Anderson-ish. Or the left side, I guess, but around Anderson.
Your town center, you've got your town center and then you've got the TOD. They're pretty much the same. I mean, those are, you know, they one builds off of another one. And so, you know, this calls out the main on the main town center on the east side, but surrounded by TOD.
I'm sorry, the east side of Anderson. But if it's on the west side of I mean, if it's right smack there, I'm okay with that because it's just across the street. But yeah, I meant to say east.
Having a stronger relationship with the open space to the commercial and retail, I think that's something that the plan calls to, and I think that's what you were
I agree.
kind of insinuating, so, okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Ron, who has had the patience, and that much patience. What that does is it gets a road named after you. You're the only one here with a road named after you, Ron, so congratulations. Okay, in the city. All right, well, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. You have our contact info, Mike as well. We'll try to open those lines of communication.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Adam, do we need to stop and start on the recording? Or are we good to go where it was a work session? All right, well, we will start with our regular session. Welcome to all those who are attending. We'll start out by, we'll have an opening prayer by Mike Vancheri, after which we'll ask Mary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that okay? Okay, we'll go to that point.
Our kind Father in heaven, we're truly grateful to be here tonight for our council meeting, and what a blessing and privilege it is to live in a country, a state, and a city where we seek that guidance, and that we have the freedoms to govern ourselves and represent those citizens who entrusted us to conduct the city business. We're thankful for those who are willing to take the entrepreneurial risk, those who are willing to sacrifice and make our city a better place. We are thankful for our citizens. We pray that God will bless them, that our community will be safe, that it will be a haven from the world, and it will be a highly desirable place to live and raise families. We are thankful for our mayor and all the things that she does, and pray that God will bless her in her absence, and pray that that Spirit will guide us tonight as we deliberate, that we will be kind and receptive to listen to one another and respect opinions, and that we can reach decisions that will be for the best benefit of the city. As always, we pray for our families who are away from us at this time, that they will be blessed in our absence and somehow compensated for our service that we provide. And to these and all other blessings we stand in need of, and with again a great deal of gratitude, we pray in the name
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mary. We will start with a roll call, starting with Councilmember Broderick, if you would.
Van Broderick, present.
Randy Powell, present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Mike Vanchery, present.
Daryl McElby, present.
Okay, we're all here. We'll excuse Mayor Lundberg, who is out with some family. Presentations and announcements. Are the representatives from Mountain Point Medical?
So on this item, they had hoped that the mayor would be here, and they contacted us today and said they would like to reschedule, so we will postpone that for another time.
Okay, that'll conclude our announcements. We, at the beginning of every meeting, have a open session for public comment, and this is for anything that's not currently on the agenda today. I'd like to open it up for anyone who'd like to talk in the public comment. Okay, we'll start here and next, and as you come up, if you'll state your name and address for the record, and we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, I'm back again. My name's Maxine Smith, 260 South, 280 West. I come a couple months ago and talked to you about three main problems, concerns I guess that I have, and hopes that it can be addressed. Number one was that when we purchased the ground and built our home because you wanted us to live where there was animal rights, and that was in 1973. It was a division of the original property into 5 pieces. So we asked for a public road. And they said to build as is. We did. And then in 1978, you put the sewer in. And you said all existing homes had to connect, and all homes built before then would pay $250. And in good standing, we paid a down payment on that. And I give a copy of the letter that we received along with the receipt with Wilma Taylor's initials on it of the money. I know it was a small amount, but it was in good sports because the city said we had to put it in. So a councilman came to our home, looked down the right of way and said, oh, you need to put it in. And I said, it's 16 feet wide. We have culinary water and natural gas. Where am I to put it? I made the payment in good, and they did not furnish the road for another 20 years. And that was when the gentleman took the rest of the property and divided it and developed some of it now. So I'm asking, Brother Hoyt is a banker. If I took a cash advance, I would be paying interest and it would be accumulating monthly, right? I would like that money back because I've never been honored with it. And when the home had to be connected, Adam would not, he said no. So I'd like the money back with interest. I don't know about you, I know that interest rates could be maybe 14.9, but right now, mine's running at 29.9. But, so that's number one. And number two was that when we then built a home in our field on that same road that was put in 1993, we built it so that we could accommodate my father or my mother-in-law. And so when we built on that, you said that we had to put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk, which you did not require the developer to put in 93. We paid for that, curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and I've been for years trying to get that put in. And it's not been done. Adam did come to the house, and he waited, and then he brought along with him Noah, city engineer, at his request. And so I have a son-in-law who's an engineer, and he said, well, they didn't know how the drainage goes and all these questions. And I said, I'm sure that we could get it put in. But that son-in-law is busy putting a new asphalt plant in Mona. And I think the city has, if they have an engineer, they know which way the water drains, and that curb gutter sidewalk can be put in my home. The other thing was, when I was here, was I talked about the west boundary, because when we moved there, it's agriculture. And the other property owned by Mabel Harris, which is Don Peterson's grandma, was agriculture also. And then at that point, she divided off for her grandkids, and Don and the other 3 cousins got ground. But the rest of it, they turned into a development called Heritage Farms. They've taken away dirt, and I had Adam and asked him the last time I was here, would he look at the problem I have of retaining the property, the dirt that I own and pay taxes on? And when he left here, Adam, if I remember right, you said this probably, the retaining wall would not happen. But Adam did come, and Noah, and they walked the west fence line of how I tried to maintain with boards and posts the property that is mine. And the development did not put in fence or retaining walls. They've continued to haul out dirt. In fact, the building inspector was there when another one hauled out dirt. And I was concerned because it's still agricultural and large animals. The only dirt that was replaced was the few inches on Don Peterson's ground. So Noah looked at it, Adam looked at it, and walked it, and he said it probably won't happen. I need that retaining wall, and I know because it's been put off, it would cost a lot, but I need it to retain my animals. And Noah can tell you, I have 2 fences and sometimes 3 to keep my animals from sloughing away because of the traffic that's gone through there with kids and dogs, and the last dogs that were caught. You can ask Officer Whitehead or Cody Cullimore, and they were my neighbor's dogs. I hate to say it, but they're Don Peterson's, and his kids and dogs and animals have been a problem. So anyhow, I need the wall to retain my property, and it should have had that and a fence put in when the development went in under Olson Development. So I'm here tonight that somebody would address those 3 things, because I no longer can haul stuff in and try to retain when I'm not the one that done the development.
Maxine, can I ask, what's the topography, how, on that west side, how far of a drop?
Anywhere probably from 6 to 8 feet on the south end, which is the smallest, to 12 to 14 feet on the north end. One other thing, I had on this west property, and Adam will tell you, that there is a piece of property that I come because of raccoons and dogs, cats, I send with the police officers. And I did meet the new police officer. She's very nice, Karen. But anyhow, with these animals, they are eroding this bank. And I called them, and they said, you can't have an officer come to your home, for animal control. I'll have him called. Well, it didn't happen. So many hours later, I come up, and there was, chief of police was gone. The one that was supposed to be doing it was busy. And so Deputy Clegg, he just said, hello, yeah, how are you doing? Later that day, he did come to my home and come on my property, and he walked the fence line, and he can see the problem I have with a very unkept lot. And so anyhow, as he walked back, we talked about some history that I had there with that right-of-way. And it turned out that he was the officer that came and asked me who was living in the trailer. And we talked about that incident, as nobody would believe me that somebody was living in it and connected into the old sewer, until he did. And that gentleman in the trailer I don't care if nobody knows, but he was, Deputy Clegg can tell you that I was telling the truth. The mayor said, oh, he said, she said, but that gentleman was hanging in the trailer for a week or more. So anyhow, the point I wanted to bring out with Officer Clegg, after he looked about the sewer, he said, forget it. Curb and gutter and sidewalk, forget it. And the west boundary, forget it. But you know what? It affects my property, my work, and what I can achieve now. Will you please address those 3 items for me?
Maxine, we appreciate you, appreciate your long history here at Lindon. You are a longtime resident, a great resident. Maybe Councilmember Randy and I know, I appreciate Adam and Noah going out there. I got a lot of friends in neighboring cities, and to get someone to even come out is a lot of times difficult. Maybe Councilmember Powell and I can follow up with Adam and have those conversations and talk about what happened there. As you know, in this council meeting, there's a limited amount of decision-making that we can do, so we appreciate you bringing that up. We appreciate staff going out there. We'll chat with Adam and we can follow up with you.
Okay, and Adam, I did have on that property, when you walked them, you didn't know whose property they were, who the owners were. And this property has been a property that has done catering and in up to almost, about 15 parties a year. No parking. And they have no parking for the rental that they now have. They all park on the street. But Adam can know, how would you define that property?
Is this the one to the west, down below you?
Yep, the unkept one.
I don't know that I can define that other than a single-family residence, Maxine. So-
Well, the weeds, the trash, the buildup was a concern, because if it catches on fire and no retaining wall, I lose my property. And so I also had come up and talked to, well, I talked on the phone, and so the one who's over, the chief of, over the fire, he come out and he said it needed to be cleaned up, but that was early July, and that has not happened. That lot hasn't been cleaned up since 2014.
Just quick, the 3 issues are the $250 plus the interest.
Well, the amount is just $25 owing. I know it, but if you times 44 by 12, you're gonna get over like 580 months of interest on $25.
And the other one's a retaining wall.
And my
And then the
curb gutter and
gutter
sidewalk. Yeah.
We've provided written responses to all of these previously to Maxine, and so I don't know that we would have anything different other than the responses that we've already provided.
Okay, I have addressed it last year again with the new gentleman over streets, and he said it probably wouldn't happen, and he said it probably wouldn't happen this year. But again, I paid over $1,900, and that was 27 years ago.
So, Maxine, we appreciate you bringing this up. Public session is just for that. We can review what's been written, we can review with what you've said, and we can see if we need to escalate that to an agenda item or something like that. You know where to find me, you know where to find us. We've got council members, I can see they've taken copious notes. Let us follow back on this and get back with you. Thank you, Maxine. We appreciate you. Next, please.
I don't need the microphone. I can talk loud enough.
Awesome.
It's helpful for the recording, though, and for the people online.
Okay, my name's Mary Ann Anderson. I live on 4th North. My mother lives at 75 West. I live at 57 West.
Okay.
I have many incidences, but the one I want to bring up, and I don't understand how you can be the mayor and not be at the meetings, especially when you can only contact her by email. That's wrong, because I don't email. I'm old enough that I've lived my life 64 years with not emailing. I'm not going to start now. So I would think there should be some way you can contact her by phone. Otherwise, she's no good to the people that don't email. Second of all, there was a deer hit on Friday morning in front of my house, in front of my mother's house. It laid in the road in front of our driveways. That meant it blocked the mailbox. It blocked so the garbage man couldn't come. And it's rotting out in the road where every little kid that walks by it has to poke it or look at it or touch it. Okay, after a couple of days or after a day, they start stinking. Sure. They start having issues where I wouldn't want my child touching it, but how do you keep a kid from touching it? I personally went to the Public Works building. They told me there was nothing they could do. I came to this office. They told me there was nothing they could do. I went to the police department. They told me there was nothing they could do because by law they cannot touch the animal, only DWR can. That I had to wait 5 days for the DWR to come and remove this animal from my yard. 5 days is a long time. Do any one of you want a deer sitting in front of your yard for 5 days?
No.
Okay, why do I have to have one sit in front of my yard for 5 days? Because there's only one DWR gentleman in Utah County. Okay, I don't know how many deer there are in Utah, in our little town here, but I see several every day and it's wonderful. Okay, there was a gentleman that did pull up in a white Lindon City truck. Did he get out and pull the deer off the road? No. He sat in his truck and he took pictures. I wish I would have known whether it was Zach, but I was not home. Because I do know who Zach and Juan both are, and boy, don't we miss Don Peterson. Just saying that, and I didn't like Don Peterson, but I miss him a bunch. So a police officer did come to the house after I'd been to the police station, which he needs an attaboy. His name is Farley. Okay? Whoever the police officer Farley is, he went above and beyond. Because at least he tried to resolve the problem. And I made the statement, well, I will just load that deer in my Bobcat bucket and drive it up and leave it on the front porch here. Then you guys can wait 5 days for them to come and get it. He said, you better not do that. I said, well, I'm not going to look at it for 5 days. He did drag it across the street into the weeds that are across the street from my house, which was nice, but it still sat there till about an hour ago. That's unacceptable. The disease, and just the way it looks. Now, I encourage any one of you to drive from Main Street to Locust Avenue and see how much that road has changed. Because we live in a trash world right now. Not only the weeds, but when people leave their furniture outside in their front yard, and how a new house, I'm not saying that everybody's entitled to have the 4-story home with the 5-car garage. But you do have to have something nice. And what's built there now, none of you would want that in your neighborhood either. And I don't know how they got it built. But that is about the trashiest. I haven't been where this lady lives, so I can't judge that.
Yeah.
But for the people that drive up and down 4th North and Lindon, if I didn't live here, I wouldn't move here. But there needs to be something, and how do we go about getting more than one DWR officer?
Yeah, please, Jake. Yeah, Marianne, I'm right with you. There was it last year on State Street? There was one that was bloated right across from where Amy is building, right there. I called the DWR, I can't tell you how many times, at least 3 times. And it was bloating, and we went through this whole scenario about how many there are available. We've got one from, at the time, there was one for part of Juab, all of Utah County, and part of Wasatch at that time. I contacted all of our state representatives that I could get a hold of anytime I bumped into them at any meeting. Our state senators told them, well, because basically DWR says that they're limited on their resources and their funding from the state. So then I get a hold of them and let them know we need more funding. Now, I'm hoping that one day, I kind of thought we had now 2 in this area. I could be wrong, but it is. Unfortunately, it was Friday. It drives me crazy that that has to happen. So I hear you, 100%, I hear you. It's not in my neighborhood, but I have deer that sit underneath my cherry tree about every other day. And, you know, we have to be careful not to hit them, but on Locust,
I
sadly.
got pictures on my phone.
Ew,
Of
please
the
keep
big
them on your
deer
phone.
of the big deer that got poached.
Oh.
Boy, we're not Lindon City boys all involved in wanting to be pictures. They all have their pictures with these big deer
Yeah,
that
so
were
I'm so sorry
poached.
that it was across the street from you. I hear you, because
No, it was in my front yard. It was in my driveway.
I'm so sorry. And yeah, so, yeah, I'll get on the phone next time and help call, because that's how angry I get about the fact that these animals are not moved in a more quick manner. So
Okay, so
I understand that. So I'm
Here's
just.
my question. If they can't move a deer, but I can come and borrow a trap from you, and if I catch a raccoon, the cops will come and remove the raccoon. Now, isn't that an animal, a wild animal also?
That's outside my scope of knowledge.
Yeah, different animal, different rules from the DWR. You know, I add this to the list of items and frustrations I have with the state. I agree with you. It's frustrating that the things they tell us that we can and cannot do. What I would like to instruct staff to do is, can we look into what our options are? I'd love to be able to just say, hey, it's in our driveway. Let's move it across the street, and not have that be like oh shoot, we did something wrong. I'd love to be able to say that's something we can do.
Why
Can
not
we do
load it
that?
up in a pickup truck and take it to your yard so it's not sitting in the road for the little kids to punch?
Yeah, no, I agree. And so we'll look into what options we have, knowing that it may be that the state has some very strict laws and we can't do what we can't do. And the only way is to do what Randy did, which is contact your state legislatures and push them to change these rules. And so we will certainly look into that. And, you know, I apologize. I remember that too. It seemed like there was one year there was several on State Street. And
Last year was just bloating.
Anyway, I mean, it just depends on who you are and where you live, and I live in the old part of Lindon, so nobody cares about that.
No, I don't
The
wanna
people, you people, I'm not saying you people, okay? But the majority of the people don't care about from Main Street to State Street on 4th North.
Well, they don't know what to do. I mean, what is somebody driving by?
Well, Don Peterson sure made it so if you didn't clean your yard up, the people from Lindon City were there cleaning it up, and you got a bill in the mail, because my mother got one.
Yeah, and we still have those processes in place, and it a lot of times is a citizen-initiated process. And so if there are, I know there was one in my neighborhood this year that just got cleaned up, that the weeds were too high. A neighbor complained to the city. A notice was sent out. You have 21 days to remedy it, or you will be fined, and it was remedied by the homeowner. And so those processes are in place, and we invite you to reach out. Yeah, Mike.
And we hired a code enforcement officer now, and so he just started about a week ago, so we're bringing him up to speed. And
Well, let's have him drive up 4th North once in a while, okay?
Mike's
it
his
looks
boss, he'll send
trashy.
him right up there.
I wrote it down, so.
Okay.
Also, just so you'll know, that the home on the corner of Locust and 4th, we had no say in the matter. The state code, the state law required that we allow that project to go in there. We didn't have the options.
You want me to tell you what the word is in the valley?
No. Thank you, though.
Because you wanted their water rights, and that's the other issue I want to bring up.
Okay.
We had a meeting here 3 months ago, with the 25 water shareholders and Juan. That us 25 water shareholders that gave you our water, 11 shares. What is that worth right now? $750,000. Okay, and now you want to put a meter on? How fair is that? But I haven't heard one thing since that meeting.
Talk to your state legislators, the state.
No, it's a city thing.
No, it's not. It's a state.
It is, because I did research that, and they are giving money, and it isn't all just for metering water. It's for improving the sewers, it's for updating the culinary water. Okay, all this money that they're getting, that they're pounding down our throats saying, we have to do pressurized irrigation, or we have to meter our pressurized irrigation. That is not what they're saying. That's not what I've read. What I've read is they're giving money out, and what we need to do with Lindon, because had Gordon Case not have initiated it on 4th North last year to redo the water lines from the, at least from the meter to the pipe when they repaved the road, how many water lines would be broke this year?
Don't know.
A lot.
Applaud your passion, thank you.
So you want me to leave? Apparently that's what you're telling me.
No, I don't know.
You don't want to
So much.
listen to me, you just want to tell me I'm wrong. Randy, I'll talk to you later, thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Anyone else for public comment? Okay.
What was that gentleman's name? Mike what? What's your last name, Mike?
Van Cherry. Yeah, make sure you spell it correctly.
I'm not gonna spell it, but I'll let everybody knock it out for you.
We'll end the public comment section right there and start into council member reports. Daryl, our cool, calming presence on the council, will you take it away?
The only thing I would have on the council reports is the historic commission and the centennial celebration. It's going to be in 2024. I don't know if citizens know that, but in 2024 it's our 100-year celebration, and so I'm going to head up that opportunity to have a grand celebration in that year, and we're going to be looking to the community to help with that. So at some point, some of you might reach out to you to have your assistance and help in having a grand celebration in 2024. That's all I have.
Yeah, Tuesday night, Jake and I had the opportunity to participate in the Life Hacks 101, sponsored by our youth council. It was at the castle at Wadley Farms. It was extremely well attended. There was a lot of booths and exhibitors and participants, and I was impressed with how genuinely interested the young people were that came and at least visited my station, and I know Jake had a lively interaction with them also, so it was extremely well done, and so kudos to those who put that on. It was definitely worthwhile, and it hopefully will continue. Saturday, we had our first session of CERT training at the senior center, which was just absolutely fun. We started at 8 and we ended up a little bit after noon, and it's again, that's really a worthwhile endeavor, so I'm excited to continue that CERT training and get the certification, and if all of you have time to do that at some point in the future, I would highly recommend it. So yeah, it is fun, and Kelly Johnson is just amazing. Kelly,
She's great at what she does.
yeah, she's just really good at what she does. So, in terms of, I think Mike and Mary have done a great job of sharing with what's going on. We kind of know what some of the things that are happening here in the community, and it seems to be pretty steady. There's really nothing else that I can think of that I have to report.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mine will be brief. Police update, Lindon City's Facebook page. I think we're all aware of that in some manner. You know, it's unfortunate that bad things sometimes happen in our city, and the majority of the time in the last few instances, it's people coming from outside of our city and committing crimes. And so we appreciate Chief, his efforts. Adam, you'll keep us apprised if there's anything else you need from us, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and in regards to that, both of those individuals have been apprehended as of this afternoon, so.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
All I can tell you on it right now,
Okay.
so.
Thank you, Adam. Other than that, just let's keep an eye on our sales tax. We've had a few home builders, individuals in the home building process, drywallers, roofers that are on the banking side noting a slowdown with the increase in interest rates. I know some of our top sales tax providers, payers are in that home building
Construction-related.
construction, our west side. Let's just keep an eye on that, where we rely so heavily on that sales tax. So that's all I had.
Jay? Just parlaying off of what Mike said, as far as the Life Hack 101, it was a wonderful event to report on. And thank you, Mike Vancheri and Jay Coit, for participating and lending your time. So the public knows, we had dozens and dozens. Oh, and Mary, too. Thank you for participating. You and Juan helped with that. We appreciate that as well. And I think the count was right around 250 youth from the valley, or from our area, and I know a few from outside participated. It was just an incredible evening. Our youth council went to such great lengths of being able to find people to man these booths and to share with the community things from first aid skills. These gentlemen were in the financing wing, and a lot of participation. It was not a boring corner of Wadley Farms. And then in the center section, we had a lot of general life skills for these juniors and seniors in our community who will someday hopefully leave the nest, as like all parents would like them to be successful in doing it. Upstairs, we had more health-related participants who helped with yoga and breathing techniques and de-stressing, those kinds of things. Huge kudos to Wadley Farms for donating the facility. What an amazing event, and for being able to acquire this at a peak season time, and for them to be so generous giving it to us on a weeknight when normally it would be full of people coming to a wedding venue. And as being somebody at the front door, we captured a few people who should have been at the wedding across the parking lot. So we had a few confused people trying to crash our youth hack.
Have a few gifts that you need to
I
do
was
something
hoping
with?
so, but yeah, nothing to share. So, but really great things. Big kudos to Kelly Johnson, who is the one who actually organized this. Prior to the Youth Council coming on board, it was Mayor Lundberg who then put the two together, and it's just been a wonderful event to watch our Youth Council. Youth Council will have our first meeting next Monday night, and as far as a mock Youth Council, that will be here in these chambers from 4 to 5, so we're excited to have that kick off with our Youth Council. I had the opportunity to fill in for Van this last week for the engineering meeting, something I've missed being able to attend.
Thank you.
Sure enjoy all that goes on, and what Noah and Trent and Juan and Adam, all the coordinating that our city staff does to make sure that anything on the public works and the engineering gets handled well and look forward towards the future for great things for Lindon. I'm so proud of our staff and everything that they do that keeps us going. On last Monday was our drill, our 9/11 drill, right here in this room. Again, Kelly Johnson. If you see Kelly, she needs a huge accolade. She has been over the top, so busy. And again, she is a part-time employee who does more than full-time job, and so appreciate everything she does for Lindon City. Our participants, I can say these words, I don't know why I can't. Participation rate from the city was, I can't remember the number, but it was extremely high. I was meaning to contact Kelly to get that number, but
87%.
it was very high. Typical for Lindon, though. I'll have to say we're very good at reporting to our block captains and getting it through the chain of command and getting it here to the city in very timely manner. Everything was, I think there was a competition between West and Lindon Stake, and thankfully Central Stake, the one I'm in, got there really close to a third. I mean, it was almost a three-way tie. It was that close. So
Who won?
it was West Stake. Come on. I'm a former West Staker, so I have
There we go.
22 years on that one. They always win. But let's see. Oh, and Holy Cow starts tomorrow. I'm done.
Man.
Just one quick thing in the irrigation world. Former president of the North Union Irrigation Canal, Jack Jones, passed away since we last met. I think 94 years old, but years and years of service, and just wanted to pass that along. A lot of institutional knowledge went with him, and along with Mr. Brown. I forgot his first name. We lost two of those guys in the last few years, so we appreciate their service, and I just wanted to mention that and make note of their great service that they provided for years and years.
Thanks, Van. All right, we'll turn the time over to you, Adam, Administrator Report.
Thanks. A few items here, just an FYI on our joint city council, September 26th, our city council social with American Fork, PG, and Cedar Hills and Lindon. Monday, the 26th at 6 at the community center. And we haven't had very many RSVPs yet, so we're gonna send out a notice and remind those other entities of that meeting again. So the mayor wanted me to ask if there was any desired topics that you guys wanted to bring up as common matters of interest.
I would be interested in knowing how each city did this year regarding water conservation. We had a discussion last time about that.
Okay.
Is Orem coming? Is it just Pleasant Grove?
It's just PG, AF, and Cedar Hills.
And that's 6 p.m.
Is there any of the communities that are, I know there was a little bit of talk at the last one, talking about anticipating doing any needs for truth and taxation next year? So any,
PG held some hearings, and I don't know if the other cities did, so that would be a good follow-up, so.
And that's in the community center.
Correct.
I'll go from here to there.
Need to do anything as far as helping with food or?
I've got it.
Daryl's
Very much there.
helping us out there, so.
I'll be cooking
Make
all
sure,
day.
yeah, turn in receipts, so.
The other thing you can help us out with is relocating down on 7th North.
Okay, yeah, do that. Can we just move the building?
Yeah.
Let's see, a few other things. We're gonna talk more about Geneva Resort Park here later in the meeting. Just an FYI on the Juneteenth survey that we sent out to all of you and the employees. The majority would like to just keep that as is with our current holiday schedule and not change a current holiday. However, it was recommended with, we have one personal holiday that's able to be taken any day, and that be designated as in recognition of Juneteenth. And so if an employee wants to take that as that day, they would certainly have that option. And so we'll talk more about that later tonight too, so. Just an FYI on the pickleball study, Heath, I know he sent out some surveys to all the jurisdictions within Utah County. One of the items, I just thought this was interesting, he will be preparing a presentation to come up here in a future meeting. But as of all of those cities that have responded in Utah County, Lindon is the second highest number of courts per capita at one court for every 917 residents. And the only other higher one was Mapleton, which is in the 800, one court for 800. Most other jurisdictions are around the 2,000 people per court. So I thought that was an interesting fact, so. We have this vaccination clinic coming up here October 21st, and that's held in this room. That's open to the public. We'll send out some social media posts and things on that.
What vaccinations will they be doing, do you know?
The county health department brings a whole slew of them, and so I'm assuming it's gonna be flu and COVID and all sorts of things, but they usually have things prepped for hepatitis and all sorts of stuff. So if you're interested, we can send you a link, Van, and it has some more details on there.
Curious.
Okay. We do that here. On the Crumble Ribbon Cutting their headquarters here, it is the first building just west of the PG Lindon interchange there, kind of in that northwest corner. They wanted to invite you all to their ribbon cutting. That's 4 o'clock on Thursday, the 22nd. And then just an FYI, we've been working with Provo River Water Users Association. There was a desire to put some benches along the Murdoch Canal Trail in the Provo River right-of-way and facing the temple there. And so we've gone through a lot of hoops and have that approved, and so we'll be bidding that out and moving forward with that. A couple other items here I do need to just spend a minute on. let's see, with the environmental for the Lindon, the PG Lindon interchange, there's been an environmental assessment that's at a draft level. These will be available for public comment coming up in some open houses. They are scheduled here. I need to find that and pull that up.
American Fork, right?
Yeah, so there will be an online public hearing September 27th from 6 to 7 p.m. and we'll publish all of these, send out some emails, and then an in-person public hearing the 28th from 5 to 7 at Odyssey Charter School in American Fork. What's being looked at, so this is the current Pleasant Grove interchange is basically at a failed level. And so they are looking at turning the 2000 West overpass into kind of a partial on and off ramp where individuals could get, if you're headed northbound, instead of going through that PG interchange, you could take 2000 West and get onto 700 North and bypass the whole PG interchange. If you're headed south, you could take a frontage road system that would bring you to this exit here and then get off over towards the landfill. There's a series of braided roads here, tunnel. This would function very much like the Triumph Boulevard exit in Lehigh that's been under construction for a couple years. And so if you're up in that neck of the woods, take that exit, Triumph Boulevard, and drive the frontage road up to that Lehigh exit where Thanksgiving Point is and kind of make that loop. This is very much how that would function when it's finished. This is a couple 3D renderings that they had. So relocation of, they're calling it Proctor Lane. In this study, this is 2000 West Lindon, and we're going to make sure that they are aware of that. And so Proctor Lane is a name that Pleasant Grove used for years, but this is all within Lindon City. And so, but again, you'll see there's kind of a tunnel there. So if you're headed northbound, you could get off prior to this Proctor Lane and take this exit, or if you want to get up to the PG interchange, you'd go through that little tunnel, and then it's just reversed if you're southbound. So
Will they put a street designation on that bridge?
we assume so, and that they will also have an
Change
exit.
the name officially so we get it to what we want?
We talked about this in our engineering meeting. We did something similar with the Center Street where we renamed that Lindon Center Street by official action of the council, and we think that would be wise for this road as well, so.
Agreed.
So we'll bring that up, and then we'll send you out a link on these, but would appreciate you being informed of that. Funding for this, I think they are out 7 or 10 years at least, and so this is a long ways away before they would even have the funding to go to construction. But it is
My understanding is up at Triumph Boulevard, Lehigh, they relieved a lot of the pressure. Not nearly as bad as it used to be, is what I've heard.
Yeah, we've heard similar, so. Let's see here. The only other thing, just an FYI, I don't know if the mayor's mentioned this to you. We are not planning to have the community Thanksgiving dinner this year. We've tried to meet with several other groups to see if they would take that on and haven't found anybody willing to do that. The mayor's having me explore some community food drive options that could take the place of that event, but do that not on the actual holiday and see if we could free up some people that have been committed to that for a long time. So just an FYI on that. So that's all I have. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, Adam. We'll move forward in this meeting to the review and approval of the minutes. Kathy's done a great job. I've reviewed those and didn't have any changes. Is there anyone on the council who would like to make any changes?
I have no changes.
No changes.
I'll entertain a motion.
To approve the minutes of August 15th to 2022.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Kathy. Great job. Consent agenda items, this is there anything you want to say about this? A lot of times it's a quick look. We've usually reviewed them. Anything you want to say before
on
we
this
move forward?
proclamation, we were approached by a group that's encouraged cities to do this. Several of our neighboring cities, Orem and PG, have both done this. The mayor felt like this was appropriate to recognize September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, as this was the week that the Constitution was formalized. So.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve our consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion from Randy, second from Van, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll move on to a concept review, PRD overlay. We've got our friends from Elwood Holdings. We'll let them come forward, and then we'll put Mike up to the desk. I will recuse myself for potential conflicts of interest. And as far as mayor,
I think I'm
Randy will be my backup, and she'll call me back in. I'll hang out in the back, and
no, didn't think about that.
sorry about that. I should have thought of that before, but we'll turn the time over to Mike, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. So, as you're aware, the property there at 550 North South State's under construction for the residential portion in the back. I've been working with Amy over the last couple months on some different commercial options that she has for the property. Our current ordinance, we specifically wrote this in, is 17.76.030. It says, in order to preserve the intent of the general commercial zone, building permits from Lindon City shall be obtained and construction commenced for at least 25% of the approved commercial square footage prior to releasing building permits for residential construction. And so, this evening, Amy would like to talk with you about just a concept review, that you're not giving any type of approval tonight, about whether to amend this section. I believe she's got a potential tenant that is looking at the site for a dental hygiene school and dental offices or medical offices. She can explain more about that. There's a couple different options we could look at. You could just remove that section of the code. If you felt like the commercial has been adequately preserved, which we have, it's still we still have that almost 300-foot depth buffer that has to be commercial. The residential's under construction, and so that's one option. Another option would be to include a development agreement, so you could require a development agreement or 25% of the commercial to go in, or you could keep the ordinance how it is. So kind of three options there.
So tonight, we're just going to be exploring. That's no decision that's going to be made, just exploration. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, not from both you and Brian.
If you wanted to move forward then on something, Amy would then apply for an ordinance amendment.
Okay.
Would take that through the public process with the Planning Commission and City Council.
Thank you, Mike.
But Mike, would that apply just to this property, this zone?
This would apply to just this zone, the planned residential development overlay zone.
Just this, but not just this site. It
Not
would.
just this
It would-
site?
It would
Yes, but in
apply
order
generally.
for any other site to be included in that planned residential development overlay zone, we're still in the process of amending that they have to include their map in that area. So they have to go through an ordinance amendment, they have to go through a zone change. We're now looking at the density for that zone. We need to bring that back to you, so.
So is there anything that you want to start out with before Elwood?
A
Holdings
lot of
comes
it
forward?
is, I think Amy's got a good presentation ready. Just as a reminder, this is the site plan that we've approved with the residential behind the commercial's there. The Lowbook sales is nearly complete. I think they've just got their landscaping to put in, and then Amy has the two pad sites there along State Street, this is Lot 1 and Lot 2.
Okay, thank you. Amy? Whoever you're bringing forward with you.
So I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'm Amy Johnson, the developer and representative for Elwood Holdings right now. Go ahead, Sam.
So my name's Sam Wilkinson with Wilkinson Capital Partners, and we would be a development partner as well as we are partners with the dental group. And this is our friend Sam with the dental group.
My name is Sam Rodriguez. I'm from Grandpa's Dental and Ensign Dental, and we're looking into using the space that will be built.
So we have two Sams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just clarifying, that wasn't just.
It's a Sam. Yeah. So where we've come is we've worked fervently, and we've actually received a couple different offers for this land, and people have wanted to buy the whole part and where we've come across that's been difficult is because of the 25% rule. I have not been able to relinquish the power of allowing them on their own timeline to develop, to design, to work through. And so I've had to constrain them on their contracts. We've been through 3 different LOIs, and I've had to constrain them on saying, I can't allow you to buy this unless you perform this fast. And they said, well, we have to design our, we buy the site, we look at the site, then we design it with our architects, and that process can't be rushed within a month, in our due diligence. And so where we're at this point is we feel like the Wilkinson Group, Wilkinson Capital, has a really, really beautiful design, and that it would match well for Lindon City. They want to purchase the entire front piece. They would even like to, they can do it without, but even the older dentist, Dr. Harvey, his 2 buildings, and we have actually had conversations with them, and then the Gunthers, the HVAC, the old warehouse building there, they were wanting to sell as well. So these guys would be taking that entire front. It is possible for them to develop and constrain in the space that we have allotted for them, but they would like that entire part. Where it gets difficult is if I have this burden of the 25% and I'm holding up Seago Homes, who's working great, and in this market, is working hard on getting that development, then we're constrained and not, I'm having to then choose and pick between a nicer design of this front where we can take our time, actually design it with an architect, purpose-built for here, or do I drop the other option for me in that front piece is a car wash, is another one that we have considered. And originally the city said, well, we don't want a car wash there. We have a lot of other car washes. And they came, right. But the people that I'm getting for the 25%, like if I'm just having the small, they're just, they're not designed. They're more like, okay, like a drop here, and they're not as high of end clients that I think Lindon City would want on the front. And then we're still constrained with the same problem. Even if it's a car wash, they're still wanting to design it. And so then if we're really forced, then, okay, we have to commence construction ourselves, and we build, and we just design and hope, and it's as generic as possible to try to fit a commercial tenant that we want. So
Not in the spec market.
yeah, and so I'll let the Wilkinsons kind of talk about.
Just to emphasize the importance of that customization, and just like she's suggesting, often if there is a requirement to develop the commercial first, then you end up with strip centers or spaces that are partially filled, and they've got the for lease sign out there, and it's not customized for the development partner or even the tenant. But even for our approach, we're much more patient, both on land development, but working with our operating partners to make sure that as we're developing it, really suits the needs of that entrepreneur. And in this case, we're partnering with Ensign Dental and Grandpa's Dental to do a multi-specialty dental facility, and even working with entrepreneurs like the dental group, understanding the needs of the community and that those who are living there, who are the clients of that operating business. So allowing for the development of the residential first, which is the driver of demand for the operating partner, it's more synergistic, and we can address not only the needs of the operating partner entrepreneur, but also the needs of the community. So if we know and can work with Amy and her group, understanding how they're developing their residential, it's looking more like a single-family home or apartments or townhomes, whatever it may be, that allowing of the demand driver, the community, the residents, be designed and implemented and actions taking forward, it helps us design more appropriately even on the business side of it, where we're working with the entrepreneurs that want to work right there in the community. So we really excited about this area. The Rodriguez family, they live in Lindon, and so it's a privilege to work with them and see their dream realized. They've been running a family dental business for over actually 3 generations, and so it's a privilege to work with such a stable group.
Grandpa's Dental?
Yes.
Did I hear right that there was a component of a dental hygienic college included in this potentially?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So having the ability to look at a broader part of the property and really customize an overall development. In the one case where they might be forced to build a generic building, it might not accommodate having that kind of overall master plan for the dental group, but being able to kind of master plan our section for the dental group, it could open up that opportunity to actually, so there's 2 parcels, that second parcel being a synergistic business, which one of those could be, education within the dental space.
Thank you.
So it's not, I know the original goal for Lindon City, or the fear of why we created the part, is you didn't want us to just build the residential and leave the front and not bring any kind of commercial. Wilkinson, we are in negotiations right now of an LOI and they're wanting to purchase this land before the end of the year. So it's not that they are not wanting to move forward. I need this step in order to be able to go under contract with them for the entire piece, so that we know that we're not going to be hurting Seagull Homes. So that's kind of, the only other part I would say is Michael originally mentioned that the city staff, and maybe I don't want to speak for you, but you had initially said that you were in support of the first option of just amending the PRD overlay. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we want the best project for the city, and so, if it needs to be tweaked, that's something we can definitely look at, and, but ultimately that's up to the planning commission and city council. And
I know they appreciate your opinion, so I guess that's all. I'm just checking.
Let me ask a question of,
Is there anything else you want to need to, both of them are Sam's, right? Is there anything else you think, apparently Sirius thinks, sure.
Sure, can I come up?
Sure, yes, please.
where are you schedule-wise? Are you way behind the schedule? Are you just been doing what you can within the confines of what the zone will allow you to do?
Yeah, the zoning's not holding us up. We've had supply chain issues, and we've been waiting for manholes. But the rest of the manholes should arrive this week, is what I'm told. Sort of the bottom line is we plan to be paved by the end of November. I would like to be pulling permits at the end of November. So that gives us like 2.5 months to get this taken care of. And we also have a clause in the contract that if I'm ready to pull permits and we still have this unmet 25% constraint and I can't start, then there's liquidated damages that happen that I don't want to get into and Amy doesn't want to incur. And so we all thought by now that we didn't expect the recession, I guess. We thought this would be a non-issue by now.
But that's helpful, the perspective, thank you.
Yeah.
That helps me too.
So obviously I'm in support.
So, Mike Florence, can you remind us how, when we opted to, or we took the option to let low book sales come in and acquire a portion of, how that affected the 25% for good or for bad?
Yeah, so it really didn't affect the 25% because they didn't have to pull a building permit
Right.
for it.
I just wanted to kind of make that more public explanation of why that's not being included in this, because I think for a lot of people, it'd be like, there's something across the face of that, right?
Yeah,
And
we
it's
did
because of the
bring
building.
those tax dollars and everything else.
And it's because
with
they
it.
cannot, it excludes low book sales from being able to put a building on that and creating that as an additional tax entity, I guess, or a tax channel. And so they get more product. They've expanded their product availability, but that's
I
just
know we
making that
do
more
have
public.
a couple planning commissioners that have also spoken up in planning commission meeting. Maybe they're kind of thinking that we should address this again as well. Some that are more familiar with the retail and commercial development. They're like, maybe that was
An oversight, perhaps.
an oversight, yeah. Maybe we should have just went with low book or given more time or something, so.
And before I kind of put this out here for the council to discuss this, is that, I guess that's without trying to, my conundrum is fixing this and having it affect any others in the overlay district. I would like to stay away from that. Is there a way that we can do that and then come back and revisit and include low book, or would that then make it so that they could put a building on, or what are the ramifications if we tweak it in that direction, or if we can between Mike and Brian? So I guess my question's that direction.
So, I mean, one option Brian and I have kicked around, it puts more work on us, but, one option would be signing a development agreement so that you know what type of so that eventually a master plan is approved with that, so you could tweak the ordinance to require a development agreement. And that gives you a little more comfort on what's going there. I'm not sure this ordinance is going to be used a lot more in other areas of the city, but so that was one option.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Is first, the practical application is with the changes that the council has given us direction on. The practical application is this really is probably not going to be used anywhere else in the city. We're going to be refining this statute to really apply to these parcels that it's already been applied to. But the second point would be tweaking the language to allow a development agreement in place of or in conjunction with the 25% would give us that ability to make sure that it's the type of development, commercial development we want to go in there instead of kind of rushing to get whatever we can to put the 25% in. And it does give us that authority. If for some reason we decide we do want it to apply somewhere else in the city, that development agreement option gives us some room to come to the table and really decide on what we want in that area.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, Amy?
One comment I would say to just, because I'm all about simplicity, I think part of what you could possibly do, and maybe talk with the lawyer and Michael on this, but you could change the part instead of the building permit, because we did expand the commercial. We sold for that commercial. It is allowing, because of low book sales, they are allowing more inventory. They have their truck depot. They just didn't build a building permit. And we probably, there's some arrangement that we probably could have worked out, like, hey, build a shed on here or input a flagpole or, like something that we could have circled and circumvented this maybe somehow. But I just feel like that's a nonsense game on there. And so if there's a way of saying, okay, maybe it's not pulling the building permit, maybe it's the site work, or maybe it's the, that we've expanded this commercial part already 25% on the front. The problem with the development agreement, the only other part there is I've seen just legality issues on wording and things like that.
It will take us a while to get one through the planning commission back up to you.
Yeah.
We do acknowledge that.
I mean, they also have to go through a site plan approval, so you could.
So it's cumbersome.
You could, it wouldn't have to be a development agreement. You could say you want site plan approval for the commercial, but again, that kind of ties their hands on putting something through. Just going back, we do have the commercial preserved. They can't do residential. The ordinance specifically says you can't do residential in that front portion that you've designated for commercial. And so
What I like about this process that we're in right now is we're trying to brainstorm and trying to make this, like you said, Amy, trying to make it as simple as possible. One of the burrs for me is, well, it probably won't fit, and this has nothing to do with your project, but, well, if we go for it, it probably won't. And as an elected official, I don't like that word probably. I like to have more definite, concrete, just as you as an attorney likes to have that, right, Brian? And so I like to make sure that that we can foresee as far as we possibly can, and hopefully it's beyond the front of my nose. But I like the fact that we're trying to sit here and problem solve this and try to make it available. So I'm going to put it out here to the rest of the council and see if we come up with another little nugget of something that'll help us solve this problem and the thoughts that each of you might be able to contribute or have concerns about.
In my mind, concessions were made in the residential density that commercial came first. I mean, we talked about that with the concept plan earlier with Evergreen, that everybody wants the residential and commercial is the afterthought, not the other way around. You're putting a builder at terrible risk. That you have a potential commercial, that you've kind of put them both in a little bit of a bind, and we're trying to figure out a solution here now. You're welcome to that expression, but that's how I view that.
Well, that's why we have not gone into a contract, because I don't want to put them in a bind for it. You're right.
I'll say she has been helpful to that.
And I want both of what, I want them building it and I want you to be there.
Well,
So I'm
our
all over that.
organization.
What happens if you
yeah.
don't?
Well, we can make the commitment to build, and in fact, part of that is the nuanced development agreement that we come to. Sometimes that takes time, and then like was suggested a moment ago, sometimes the site plan approval process can take time. But today, we're actually both in agreement to develop together. But the nuanced steps that are required to get it just right for our operating partner can really take time. So because it's not just a strip center, it's going to be, we'd like to have a 2-story multi-specialty location. And so working with the city to make sure that all those things, of course, can take time and back and forth, but we'll put our name on the line saying we're committed to developing with them, but with them, they also need to, I think it's appropriate for us to have time to work out the details of what that development.
Well, I appreciate that for sure.
And so long as, and also just giving that flexibility, but knowing that there's a commitment. I thought of a simple kind of scenario if I were going to do this in just a private transaction. If, for example, because at this point I'm not on, they're the owners of the property, so I can't really bind myself to what happens on their property until we have an agreement. But if they made an agreement and we've got the builder of the residential committed, and if they as a developer were to say, we will develop this beachfront property within or sell to a commercial builder with a proposed plan within a certain amount of time, be it whatever that a reasonable amount of time might be. It's like they could sign a commitment that if you'll let us proceed with the residential, we will complete our development agreement with the operational business partner within a reasonable amount of time, and that could be discussed. Maybe the development agreement and site plan will be submitted within X period, or whatever period of time is reasonable for the city.
And I certainly think a solution can be worked out. And like I said, I want both of them to happen, for sure.
So we'd be willing to, with Amy and her organization, we're on board to make the commitment to develop, but whereas we need to finalize details, if they can also be able to proceed while details are figured out, if that's fair.
And I think this evening what we need is the council liking the direction we're going to amend the ordinance, and then we can sit down, write that, take it to the planning commission and city, and bring it back to the city council. I think we're just looking for some direction. Thumbs up, yeah, you're heading in the right direction, and.
Yeah, I like kind of what Brian said, or what Mike suggested is, yes, is there a possibility? Absolutely, that something may go awry. Is there a probability? I don't think so. I think we're dealing with such a narrow universe of potential properties that, and I think the intent early on, and rightfully so, was to make sure that we had some leverage, that we would make sure we got the commercial. Now, I recognize we're talking technicalities versus realities or practicalities, but in my mind, we've already got a fairly strong tax-generating development with low book sales, and granted, we did exempt that, which is fine. But I think the intent was that we made certain that we had something that we knew was going to be able to go in there, not just some pie in the sky thing. And I don't have any issues whatsoever amending it to allow that to move forward, again, with the idea that there be a time limit set for something like a development agreement, or if we don't need one, if we can just change the ordinance. And obviously, we need to hear from staff what's going to be the most beneficial to protect the city, but I think what our desires will come to fruition very, very quickly. That property will be developed commercially. I think we're getting a better product. I've always felt like that, a little bit here, a little bit there. A car wash, car washes are okay, but what you're suggesting is, in my mind, a lot more desirable and a lot more needed in our community. So I don't really have an issue moving forward with trying to accommodate them.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Mike. I'm
Sorry,
skipping
Carolyn.
right over there to Daryl. And Daryl.
I'm comfortable from the beginning to define what we need to do in order to make this work for both parties. I have a great amount of trust in this and know that it can move forward, and it will be what they were saying it's going to be. So I would support whatever we need to do as a city to make it happen.
Do you have a preference? Do any of the three of you have preferences of how you'd like to see it happen, or pretty much carte blanche with the staff? Anything in between?
I feel like with Brian's concurrence, I feel like I'm comfortable with staff. They know what our desires are. They know what our intents are. They know what we're trying to accomplish here. So I feel comfortable just having staff work out the details and then just inform us and let us know.
Daryl, any thoughts?
I feel the same way. Make it as easy as possible, but make it stick, whatever we're doing.
Okay, Van?
And I'm the same, and that it's just the timing has kind of been adjusted, but if we can work it out that everybody's happy and that it actually happens, that would be my concern.
And I will just say, I can see Brian has something on the tip of his tongue.
And just from just to make sure I'm understanding, is is Randy, your main concern is, hey, we have got these areas worked out, we've gone through a lot of work for these two areas, and this is where we would really like this ordinance to stay, is in these two areas, is that?
Well-
So as we come back, we're gonna have to amend the ordinance.
We're already in the process, we continued it from the last, from a little bit ago.
And so as we talk and discuss, Mike and I will talk about ways to make sure we tailor the ordinance, so that's meeting your concerns too, Randy.
And yeah, just back to,
So you have that certainty.
yeah, it's the possibilities and the probabilities, and I don't even like the probabilities, but, and again, not this direction. My preference, if it's kosher and works with this, would be to somehow include the low book sales, and then we don't have to do much tailoring with the rest of it, we just go forward. So I guess I'd just like to see a way to maybe already include what's there, and maybe I'm wrong, but maybe that would help fast track it if we can include that, so, and just put us back where we thought we wanted to be anyway, and get everybody taken care of so we don't have sticky situations, which we don't need. Is that a good for everybody?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Your
Any
time.
thoughts or concerns from
No, I think
three of you?
that's, I agree with you. I think that's the simplest way for it.
We'll see what happens,
But
won't we?
we'll get to work on our end
Okay.
as well. with
Thank
everything.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Look forward to this,
So
and
is Grandpa a dentist?
Well, he was.
Yeah. Cool. Mayor, Pro Tem Square, might we take about a 5-minute break?
yes, before we even ask the mayor pro tem, well, I'm going to make that my last official action.
Last official act, Mayor Pro Tem Square.
5 minutes, please. I had no clue that was coming up.
I don't know what to do for some people, man.
You don't, you're just a perfect showman. How many different ways can you say anything that happens?
I was just telling Jake, I put it in writing, I've sent her letters, I've sent her emails.
Jake Hoyt, we haven't met, but I know your daughter.
The sewer was 19.
We're great about you.
41, 42.
And it was one of the old carbon copy where it's the yellow copy, and it didn't even, I don't think it even said sewer. It was just $25 to Lindon City, and we were like, whoa, when that was written, or what it was for.
Yeah, even if it was even for that.
Yeah, and it's,
Cool, I know that if you're not making tunings,
I'll find you in a ditch on 400 North.
Yeah, someone dragged me across the street, put me in the weeds.
That's right.
I know you have a resemblance, and I thought maybe.
Well, the reason that I grew up with, yeah, he lived up in Idaho.
Hopefully our project will help their project.
So where are you folks from?
Commercial, not necessarily development, just commercial SBA, development, whatever.
Boy, this is a great family meeting.
Let's do a 2-minute warning.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Let me know. We'll talk to you. Oh, wait.
all day long. That's why.
Well on my way.
I like the intro.
What you gotta do what's right.
Not
I gave it to
delivering
him
on
in the
that
morning.
promise.
Just that goal and, still have a good goal.
I like it. So what do we decide on that? Maybe.
Give it to staff, trying to move it forward. I would like it to be, so it just stays on this site. My thought was, what can we do to include logbook in on it and just streamline it as much as possible? What's your synopsis of it?
That's funny.
Knock yourself out, lady, how you running?
Tell everybody. That's funny.
My guess is that when she went for her new truck, they probably voted for me, just because she told them not to. You know, I really think you. Good girl. Well, that's good, you get a lot done there.
Yeah, we're almost at the sewer. It just takes time.
Okay, welcome back to the meeting. We'll get started. Thanks for that quick break. Thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Squared on that one. We'll open up a discussion item, Central Utah Water Conservancy District Residential Water Efficiency Standards. Adam, you leading us through that one?
Yeah, so we wanted to just have a discussion with you and see what your general opinions, thoughts were on this. Central Utah Water Conservancy District has offered rebates for several programs to individuals in their service areas. Might help if I pull this up on the internet here really fast. And in order to be eligible for our residents to be eligible for some of these rebates in the future, they've asked cities to adopt certain ordinance standards. As of right now, we do not have any residential landscaping standards beyond, I think it's basically you have to control the sediment. And that's, yeah, no weeds over 6 inches and control sediment, so you have to have some sort of vegetation. So right now, Central Utah Water, they have a smart controller rebate, the flip your strip rebate that we've heard recently in the news. There's a Localscapes reward. It provides up to, I believe it was $2,000 on if somebody wanted to redo their landscaping. They have to go through a class and they have to meet certain criteria and standards. And as I recall, this is a retrofit, and so it's not starting out new. Let's see, and then toilet replacement. So those are the 4 rebate programs that they have. We've had a couple inquiries, I would say between 3 and 5 that I'm aware of, where residents have called thinking these were city rebate programs, and we've referred them on to the district. So in the future, what they are asking is for these rebate programs to continue. They would want cities to adopt these standards, and so we've included a copy of those. This would be a step higher than our current position in the city, where we don't regulate some of these things. They're asking for indoor fixture requirements. They're asking for outdoor landscaping standards, certain types of irrigation connections and components. They have some definitions, and then the bigger things that would come into play for residential is this one right here. So the lawn areas shall not exceed the greater of 250 square feet or 35% of the total landscaped area. that's really restrictive compared to if you look at an air photo. Let's do that really quick. Just as a FYI, we'll zoom into one of our central Lindon neighborhoods. If somebody was looking to retrofit wherever, let's just pick right there. So on some of these lots, 35% of the landscaped area, I mean, is the max that you could have in sod. Whereas, I mean, this lot, in my opinion, I would say that's a lot less sod than, or grass than you might have in some other areas, but I would certainly say that exceeds 35%. And so that felt like a heavy standard to me. And so we wanted to just have your input and your discussions on that. For some areas that have smaller lots, like on the west side of town in some of these Ivory developments, or some of these senior housing, so these are the older Fieldstone senior development, of the area that can be landscaped, even that, to have only 35% of the area that can be landscaped, that's a really small amount of usable grass area. So that felt restrictive to me.
Clarification, if we adopt this, it doesn't mean that we have to enforce it. It's only if they want the rebates?
This is any city that wants to have their residents eligible for the rebates has to adopt this as an ordinance requirement.
Okay, but we don't have to enforce it.
Well,
We
I
don't wanna
think
put
we
something on the
would.
books that we're not-
I think if it's passed as an ordinance, so.
Okay.
So that one felt a little bit restrictive. They did mention in commercial, industrial, institutional, and multifamily, lawn areas shall not exceed 20% of the total landscaped areas. And I think in some situations we're probably close to that by the time you factor in parking. And so that one didn't hit me as heavily, but any comments on this, Mike? We certainly want to be good stewards of our water use and have wise water practices in Lindon. And the district has been very generous to Lindon in some of the grants that we've received. They've given us hundreds of thousands over the last year or two. In funding, and so, but this is something that they're saying, let me find the date. They would like any cities that want to have these rebates available to continue to be offered to their residents starting January of 2023. Would only be available to cities that have adopted the provided standards and have provided the district with the adopted language. So,
Somebody do it now before January 1st?
have cities done it? Is that what?
No, I mean, so Lindon, who hasn't done it, could
Yes.
a Lindon resident right now apply before then?
Yes, that's my understanding. Thoughts on this, or have you had an opportunity to read through some of those standards?
I would like it if we could have like 4 out of 6, or I mean, some sort of a.
Yeah, I think all encompassing, that 35% is a
Yeah, that's a
deal
kicker for me.
breaker for me.
I'm assuming they're not going to modify their standard because of our concerns, are they?
I don't know the answer to that.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too, but I'm just saying that if that were an option, I could maybe sign up on that, but that 35% is such a deal breaker for me in a city where we,
Historically, we've encouraged beautiful.
yeah, and to do that so suddenly and.
Yeah.
We don't have any board members on that district board, do we?
No,
There's cities that are adopting this.
I don't know that. I can find out. Okay.
Telling. If y'all agreed not to adopt it, then they would have to review their standard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think if we do have any contacts there, if we could express to them that we're out and we're out because of that, you know, and maybe we adjust that, it's something we'd really consider. But I think 35%, seeing the heads not up here is probably a deal killer for now.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting, on the indoor fixture requirements, they use the words, "It is recommended and encouraged, but not mandated." So an interesting thing, and then when they use the water sense label, that would be one I would want to explore. How many water fixtures does that include? What is the pricing to get those? I mean, I'm not familiar with that, even in the construction world, I'm not.
Okay.
Don't-
Sorry, what line is that?
It's in indoor fixture requirements, it's in item 3 in the water efficiency standards. And so they use the term of water sense and water
Okay.
and sense is both capitalized. I just Googled it quick, but it looks like it would require a lot of reading. And a little bit of a, kind of an aside, as I look at my life, when all of my little kids are playing and we're playing ball and the neighborhood kids in a young neighborhood, we've loved the amount of yard we had that's lawn. As I get older and when the grandkids come back, we like it, but we use it less. And so you start looking at different landscaping ways of doing things that look way cool. There's lots of choices now that look great. But
One size
each,
fits all.
yeah, this doesn't,
Right. Especially in an area where we pride ourselves in liking the options that come with our larger lots. Some people put a lot more house on their larger lots. Other people put a barn on theirs.
Adam, that the direction you need?
Yeah, that's good. I'll reach out to them, find out some more information, and then we'll bring that
Also,
back if we need
would
to.
like to just comment the fact that I think we are very proud of how our citizens have been handling their efficiency of being able to use less on their areas. So just kudos to our residents for making a lot of effort. I'm sure there's some that don't, but.
Our Parks and Rec as well.
Just before we leave that item, Central Utah did request, as part of our secondary water metering grants that we've received for them, that we change some of our commercial landscaping standards, and I know Mike is working on that. We've made a commitment to do that. Some of the things that required so much turf or things within that 20-foot landscape strip, and we've made some flexibilities there on recent planning commission decisions. So that is something that we are working towards with the district in regards to the grants that we've accepted, so.
much different in that commercial setting.
It is, yeah, I don't want to give the impression that we've put up a wall in any way, so we are trying to look for areas that we can conserve, so.
And I have had residents reach out and wanting to know how they can make their yards more water efficient, and they're kind of looking for the ways to do that, and they always hear about the rebate programs, but I'm always a little hesitant when there's lots of strings and lots of restrictions that grow into more restrictions.
You know, if you do have other questions on this Localscapes program, they actually have some videos on there. They have some sample designs. So if you do have inquiries from the public, there is some good informational stuff on Central Utah website. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. We'll move forward to review and action Geneva Resort Park Master Plan. Is that you, Adam?
Heath and I think are gonna tag team this. You wanna
Great.
come up? Is that? I'll let you lead off, Heath, where we're at. Did he give me an eye roll? No? Oh.
Those have been accused multiple times tonight.
I did roll my eyes whenever that guy said I was, but I think he just watched a few previous meetings.
We have had MHTN doing this concept plan, and to be completely honest, Carolyn, the mayor called me today and gave me about 30 minutes of forward past this plan, as you're all aware, with the possibilities of the wetlands further and connecting the shoreline trail. But we're looking at this right now for this purpose as this park parcel. So you've seen a couple of renditions, at least two before. We flipped the dog park, I'm sure you've seen, to dog parks, small dogs and large dogs, to the roadside. And then we've got a grass area, and then you'll notice, if you didn't look close, that the other areas besides the pavilion are not necessarily grass, they're native. And we can choose to maintain that or not. We think we would put in some nice plants, and
The
maybe,
light green, the native,
yeah, the darker green.
oh, darker
Yeah, the darker green.
So we keep those big trees where they're.
No, some of those trees will need to go because they're diseased, but in general, we're gonna try to work around those. That's why it's just really passive and try to keep those trees. So, you know, those cottonwood trees, those are just notorious widow makers, and they're soft and they're fast growing. And they need to probably each be individually evaluated, but we don't think all of them will have to come out, just ones that are dangerous. The parking lot and the pavilion, a couple of picnic areas, and 2 water features. We really liked the idea of the tower of some sort on the far north end, where you could look out and see wildlife. And if you haven't been down there in a while, there is a lot of wildlife down there. And even though the lake's receded back, it's been fun to see. Last time I was down there, I walked the trail to the end, and I passed a dozen fishermen, first of all.
Yeah.
And then second of all, I saw animals or birds that I don't recognize. You know, it wasn't just a pelican and stuff, it was waterland birds, and it was really kind of a neat deal. So this is the plan, and I'll give you just a little fast forward of what the mayor's plan is. She told me today, I'll let her explain it in detail, but she would like to go to Vineyard if this plan is adopted and maybe start working on a joint agreement for maintenance, as well as Mayor Fulmer has mentioned that she would like to have some input on the pavilion, the dance plaza.
what kind of input?
What kind of input?
Well, I wouldn't step out of turn, but the way I understood it was to maybe make it a year-round rentable pavilion with movable walls and some form of heating. If you've been to the one in Spanish Fork, that was referenced right there next to the Costco.
It's really nice.
It's nice.
I've been there for an event.
Yeah, and they've got the ability with those big BTU heaters to not make it warm, but make it more comfortable. And then they've got a little bit of a barbecue, but a year-round use facility. And the mayor said that she mentioned to them that maybe they could help fund it. Well, they'd be willing to help fund it.
The
pavilion.
The capital expenses up front.
Just the pavilion or the whole thing?
The pavilion.
Certainly, this is a park that's gonna be used mostly by Vineyard residents, plain and simple, probably 90-10, if we're optimistic that Lindon will use it that much.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you, Adam.
That's the one in Spanish Fork. So the doors all open, and so it's one gigantic pavilion inside. So
Cool.
if you have a summer event, you just roll the doors up and.
Sorry, I stepped on you there, man.
So anyway, I like the concept, I like the design. But for me, from a funding mechanism, Vineyard's gotta be a big part of this.
Do we even have a clue? I mean, obviously, it's gonna be a wild stab in the dark, but how much are we talking? Are we talking $250,000? We're talking.
Full park improvements, or just,
Yeah, I don't have it.
I don't think we have that information yet.
I don't have any idea what it would cost, and the pavilion is something that could go from, you know, great, but we wanted to leave it mostly open.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 4, 5, 6 million is what it's gonna cost or more.
I don't think it would be.
A little high.
With,
You got a lot of cement in there, you got a pavilion, you got
and a restroom, there is a restroom.
Just the parking lot and restrooms are $250,000 or more.
Yeah, maybe. You know, I just, obviously, we're very, very preliminary, but I will say that looking at the tower, observation towers, that second one doesn't do anything
I second that.
for me.
I know it's not
Oh,
an
that
actionable
first
item,
one,
but I
yeah.
second that.
We kinda
No,
liked,
one up above.
okay, I was gonna say, we kinda liked that one. We
That
thought
one's
Above it,
beautiful.
Early American Ugly.
We want it to
So-
look like a concentration camp, and that's the.
Guard tower. That's the guard tower, and that's the way you escape the slide.
This was a photo from the old Geneva Resort Park
It
that
was
was
little-
there. All those top photos were.
And I like how the bottom one
Original.
has a throwback to the original Geneva.
It looks classy.
Yeah.
They have those in Florida a lot, they're really cool.
One of the things that I thought about that was just a little bit on the cautious side is I don't want to have a really super passive park and then have a great showpiece Geneva Resort pavilion that my fault was, let's not overspend unless there's help funding it, because you're right, Van, it's been consideration for me the whole time that they are, Vineyard is over the moon about it. At least Julie Fulmer is over the moon about the possibilities of some place for her folks to go. And we can do education classes, and if the boardwalk goes up and around and the trail connects, great. Be a great place to ride through. But that's the plan that we decided. A couple little dog parks there where the dogs can bark and nobody will care, except those in the small homes that are now living right next to that in the marina.
So can I just give an FYI on the trail update? So the Utah Lake Authority and the county, they've been working with TSSD. It's the Timpanogos Special Services District, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the county owned some land in here, and they've worked out some sort of deals preliminarily. I don't think it's changed hands yet, where they've okayed getting the trail through this section as a trade for some property in there. And then the district allowing the trail to continue out in front, lakefront side of their project. They were for years hesitant and said, yeah, we don't want people back there. But it sounds like they've at least made some headway, is what we understand, through some individuals. And so they had looked at connecting that Utah Lake Trail and coming over from the American Fork Boat Harbor somehow and getting along that lake frontage. And so that seems like that's moved a little bit in the last year or so. TSSD has somebody on board that's contacted Ron Clegg, and who's done some of our grants, and Ron's communicated with them just to kind of make sure that all the pieces might come together. And so technically different issue from this park master plan, but just a heads up that this could be more of a regional draw at some point. And so Mayor Lundberg, she has been interested to explore then if this north tip of the park, and we have some sort of tower feature, some idea of a boardwalk system that might just be in this little area. We do, Heath mentioned, have a fair amount of people. You can see the foot trail that goes through the current bushes and reeds out there. Fair amount of fishermen that hit this little drainage.
Pretty out there.
And we'll park down below, right out here.
Can we get an artesian well spigot out there so we can come fill up?
Do we know where's sewer, where's water?
So they are stubbed in on the street, sewer and water.
Because that's a big deal compared to your cost guess, Mike. If they're there, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's probably bagged right there. So we had them put in a fire hydrant, water connection, and then a sewer stub. A few years ago, I don't know if you can see it here, down the street, if you remember, I don't know if anybody was here, Vineyard basically closed this road for about 12 months. And to put in this sewer lift station, it went really deep. They had to trench that whole roadway. And we said, okay, if you're doing this and closing our road down, it was ours at the time, please put in these utility stubs to this future park. And so they're there. And it would be Vineyard's utility services. So it is not Lindon's water or sewer. So we have a separate agreement that regulated that. And then also our Heritage Trail would come across the frontage of, this is the Vineyard Public Works Yard, and across the front of this street frontage, and then connect out here as well. So
Probably a combination of hopefully donations and grants.
There are a lot of grants available, and Carolyn mentioned on just the Utah Lake Authority now has a big pocket of money, and she's convinced them that this would be a good use right from the get-go, whatever that means. But yeah, certainly we would like to move, when we're ready to develop this, we'll write some grants just to get it started.
So what we had hoped from you tonight is a motion. This is an action item. If you're comfortable with this as the master plan, then we would, from here, go to more detailed plans and then get cost estimates that then we can go after some grant money because we'll know how much we need. So
Just a question, have we reached out, there's been some kind of groups and some people that have been very interested in this area. Did we get any input from them with MHTN when they were doing any of their research, do we know? Get much public input?
No, on this leg, they have not. They haven't done any surveys or been to any meetings or anything.
And then would the dance pavilion be the only thing trying to preserve the Geneva Resort component, or are there other
think the
components, or is
tower-
that part of the future design as it moves forward?
I think the tower was partly based off of that, just given this old slide thing that they had there, and then tying in where you're viewing those wetlands, and we do have a historical marker that we will replace. It was removed, and we'll get that put back out there. We could certainly have some other informational things. I think they identified, I thought they had little, maybe that was on a different plan. They had note of some little kiosks or things throughout some of the little wetland areas that we could do some educational signs, that type of stuff. So I think there's opportunity for that.
I think that puts us in a better category for some of the grants out there as we research.
In light of the, what occurred at our park just up here on 4th North, that the police is currently investigating, this is an area where traditionally the PD has had some nefarious activities take place. I'd recommend if we look at cameras some way, somehow to, I think it's already kind of a hot spot for crime just because it's so far out there and not really patrolled that we could find a way to not have this become the next drug deal spot. That'd be really good.
I think a lot of cameras. I mean, let's make this a little bit of the past and a whole lot of the future, maybe.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
maybe we're going back to the tower.
There you go. The other tower, the middle one.
We'll all take
The
shifts.
gulag.
So we need a motion,
We do.
I will make a motion to consider adopting a master plan for the Geneva Resort Park property that includes all of the following items listed in the staff report, the agenda staff report, and then which will lead to a more detailed site plan with cost estimates and exploring funding sources such as grants.
I'll second that.
Hang on,
Oh,
before we
sorry.
do we call this a master plan, or on the one picture here, do we call it a park concept plan that we lead toward a master plan? I know what's written there, I'm going to what's here.
I think in the past, we've referred to these as master plans, and they've been about this level of detail for our other community parks.
Maybe not a big deal.
So it gives us a framework that we say, hey, this is what was intended, and if we move things here or there, that's okay.
Okay, we have a detailed motion from Mike, a second from Randy. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 11, public hearing.
I'll open a public hearing, but can I make one quick correction from my opening remarks? Next week is not youth council, it is on September 10th. It just kind of went through my brain, so youth council is not in this chamber.
October 10th?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, 10/10. See, blah, blah, blah.
We've got a motion to open a public hearing
second the public
and a second
hearing
from
motion.
Van. We are now in a public hearing to discuss updated street lighting standards.
So after we put this on the agenda, we realized there's a more recent state ordinance or code that requires we have to advertise for 30 days any development specification related to our streets or infrastructure, utilities, and we did not hit that 30-day notice. So what we would like to do is I'll give a really brief discussion overview, and then we would like to continue this public hearing to our October 17th. We've already put out the proper notice that we'll review this October 17th. So this would be a motion to continue this ordinance tonight. Just as an FYI, NOAA prepared a lot of details. We are shifting to a street light that Rocky Mountain Power has plenty of supplies and stock on hand with the intent that we are moving towards Rocky Mountain Power taking over the lighting component that we have right now. So we brought in some samples a few months ago. The biggest change is on the style of light that we have right now. It has a glass bulb that sends the light kind of in an outward direction. This new standard, the light is actually tucked up inside the top of this dome and shines straight down, so it's more dark sky components, trying to get a little more stars visible. Yeah, it reduces light pollution. So the pole, the shaft looks very similar, and then the head basically changes from what we have in these details there that you can kind of see. And then there's all sorts of little notes and things that are changed on our development standards. Within the written document, there's wording that would need to be changed because we reference the name of the prior Hall of Fame brand. They're called Washington Post lights or Esplanades, and so we're striking all of that language from the development manual. And then as part of this new notice, Mike informed us too that there's in the ordinance, actually our land use code that references Esplanade and Washington Post light in a couple spots, and so we'd have to catch up with that as well. So there we have it. Any questions on that right now?
Yes, on this particular pole, the Rocky Mountain has, an ample supply. Do we anticipate that we're doing this again in 2 years? It feels like we've done this 2 or 3
We
times.
actually haven't changed the street lighting standard since like 2007. It's been quite a while.
Feels like we've discussed it.
We did, just changing it. Right now, we're using that LED.
Oh, we did go to an LED
We
standard.
did change that standard a year and a half ago.
So we're hoping this will last for a while anyway, I guess
Yeah.
would be my question.
Because we're going to one
Hope.
citywide standard, we're not gonna have 3 different standards throughout the city.
Yeah, in fact, this original drawing was done in April of 2007. So I think it's been adopted for quite a while for this current standard,
And also,
other than the LED change.
also it's the commercial and the residential pole will be the same because of the supply. So they'll both be the 16 or 14, so I can't remember.
16.
I can't remember which, it's the shorter. It'll be
Yes.
all the commercial. Right?
Correct.
All the residential will be also commercial, correct?
Correct.
When we get a bad street light and it needs to be replaced, this is what we'll replace it with.
Correct. Yeah, and we are working with Rocky Mountain to develop an agreement where they would take ownership of all the streetlights, and then they would be the ones responsible to maintain and upkeep those in the future.
And they're
So
paid then for their use as well, I would assume.
we pay for the power use, yeah, and they're not metered, they're all on a schedule, and so whether they're on or off, we pay. So it is in our best interest to make sure that they're fixed. So if you see some, I recently saw a spreadsheet that we had, I think it was 70 some lights that we did a recent inventory and they were burned out. So if you see some, please let staff know and we can make sure that those are getting fixed.
Interesting.
These lights, the LED ones, if you go on Main Street in front of those 2 new office buildings, they've got 3 or 4 of these. They look really good.
Perfect, we'll swing by. Is there any public comment on this brief overview?
Yeah, Lincoln.
Instead of paying the power company, how much have we looked at solar lights?
Good question.
We have not explored those at all, to my knowledge, so. I don't even know if they make a solar light that would meet the lumen standards that these produce. I honestly don't know.
I didn't know if it was a stupid question. I was a little nervous about even asking.
Cost as well, but that'd be an interesting thing to look into.
Does it exist? What's its cost? Does it work?
I've seen them in parking lots, but I haven't seen them for street lights.
Yeah, I think you'd have to have a good sized panel on each pole to make that work, but
To go all night.
yeah.
And then if it doesn't, where's the liability with the city? And I always go to liability.
We'll ask and see.
Great comment by future council member Lincoln. Is there any other comments from the public? If not, I'll enter.
You're
I
sitting
make a
right
motion to
here.
close the public hearing.
Okay, thanks, Van. Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, I'll look for a motion to continue this.
I'll do that. I move to continue ordinance 2022-14-0 regarding the updated street lighting standards.
Motion from Van,
Second.
Second from Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. We'll look forward to seeing that in a future meeting. We'll move on to the next public hearing on utility waivers and ordinance amendments.
Move to open a public hearing.
Too slow.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public hearing.
Okay, this is a pretty straightforward little motion. Our current system allows anybody who has missed a payment to just file an appeal with the city council, and their payment is stayed and until you've had a chance to have a hearing on it. In light of that, our policy is anybody can, we just stay their payment if they ask for it. And we have a number of, and that's a good idea, but in practice, we have a number of residents who just every single month they're asking, and they're falling farther and farther and farther behind. And so the clerks came to us and just asked us to look into something that would be fair but more practical in operating the water system. And this is both for irrigation and culinary. And so we've come up with this ordinance that would make it an automatic, instead of going through the appeal process, it would make it automatic that they could request an extension on their payments once every 6 months, so twice a year. And they get it automatically. And their bill that they're late behind on would be broken into 6 parts and added onto their current bill, so that they'd have time to get caught up and be square moving forward. For those people who have a very difficult time, if there's some extraordinary need that comes up and 1 month is not enough, or 6 months to pay it back is not enough, there is a process in which they could request a further extension, and then our finance director would look at that, and at her discretion, if it was more than just bad planning, if there was some significant need that arose, she could grant that out to a year to pay that back, 12 months. So that's what we're looking to do. I will note that one of the sections that we're amending does have, there are 3 sections in the ordinance. The middle section talks about termination for wasting of water and abusing water. Currently, that has also come to the council. We're going to still allow an appeal procedure to go forward with that in that circumstance, but we're going to make it consistent with the rest of our code, where first it will be the Public Works Director who decides that, and then it can be appealed up to the city administrator or to a designated representative that the administrator appoints. So that one is staying in there, but if we're talking about just, hey, you're not making your bill, we're taking away that appeal process because it's just kind of have been abused. And honestly, the old language in the ordinance didn't let you make adjustments anyway. It was just for you guys to review the bill to make sure that it was correct.
How often has the city council ever done that? Not once in my.
Yeah.
Since I've.
And again, that's kind of because we have taken the position that we're going to grant them that extension instead of bringing it to you. And so that's kind of a result of that practice that we're trying to correct as well. I will point out that the city council still acts as the board of adjustment for our utility fees. That's not being changed. That's in another section of the code. So if there's somebody who really has a hardship and, they've lost a spouse, something's happened that they just can't make their payments, and they need more than 2 months, once every 6 months help, they can still come to the council and ask for an adjustment in their rate under that section, under your authority as the Board of Equalization. So.
Well, I think for me, compassion, which I'm sure I'm echoing everybody else here, that compassion is a huge portion of making sure that we're taking care of our residents with compassion. It's the habitual, lazy people who are just too busy with whatever to actually pay their bill.
Right, and we certainly didn't want to take that away, and we're not touching that ability for a person to come and explain that situation to you.
And so I think, and I kind of have a feeling that our clerk our clerk or clerks know who fit which category typically.
Yeah.
And who are the ones that, need to have a little bit of extra love from us, and maybe others that need to have a little visit to the woodshed maybe once in a while. I didn't say anything's gonna happen there. I didn't say anything's gonna, maybe they just need to go out there and think about a little timeout.
On any given month, about 120 accounts that
Have to
are
go- have to have a timeout?
that are on the shut-off list, and then about 120 are pretty current, pretty frequent, and so they are on a shut-off notice, and then we send the notices. We send out an Everbridge notice to their phones. We send emails, and usually that gets whittled down within a few days to about 20 to 25 that actually get shut off every month. And so that's employees chasing down those households and then going out, locking out their meter, and then
How often is it the
they
same
rush
one
in.
repeatedly?
It is often. There are a few individuals that have been on the shut-off list hundreds of times. And so it is a lot of babysitting every month, every 30 days. And so
How much
this-
is the fee for all of that?
off the top of my head, I want to say at the shut-off, if they get to that shut-off, it's a $50
What I was
reconnect
thinking was
fee.
50.
And then there's just if you get a notice, I think there's a fee for that, another 20, I want to say.
And
So it's certainly penalizing as far as financially, but then what they're doing is they're requesting these extensions and pushing some of those further and further out, and they have this huge bill that can't be paid, or so they say. And so it is not often that we go more than a day or two that people don't pay. And so once they're shut off, and so they're able to get the money once that lock goes on their meter. So.
Okay. Well, Brian, we appreciate your work on this ordinance amendment. One of the many benefits of having an attorney on staff. Any comment from the public?
Just a thank you to Adam and his staff, for those of us that are idiots that sometimes have our credit cards expire when it's all auto-paid and we never look at our bill. Never look at our beer in the woodshed.
That could explain a lot.
Thank you for those notices.
Absolutely. Well, let's close the public hearing then.
Close the public hearing.
Daryl?
Second.
Second from Van. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, entertain a motion unless there's any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-13-0, amending chapters 13.12 and 13.18 of the Lindon City Code, clarifying procedures for termination of utility services for non-payment of utility fees.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, yet another public hearing.
I'll make that motion to open the public hearing.
Randy.
Last one.
Second from Van. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We are now in a public hearing for employee reclassification planner, parks, and technician.
So this is a similar recommendation that we've made with a few other positions in the city. We've made some adjustments in the past to the police department and some job categories within Public Works, looking at opportunity for upward movement to try to retain individuals, and then reward those with broader range of experience and qualifications. So we are recommending two changes tonight. One to the planner position. We currently have approved in our budget a category for an assistant planner, which is a very entry level, for an associate planner, which is kind of a mid-level, and then we've talked in the past about a senior planner. The terminology has changed a little bit. They're often referred just to planner 1, 2, and 3 now in the industry. So we're recommending some pay range adjustments to create those planner 1, 2, and 3 jobs. We've included a job description, which then identifies those different experience and number of years of experience and qualifications that would be applicable. As part of this, we've seen a lot of movement in some specific positions
even in the last 6 or 8 months since we've completed our pay range study, and we would recommend that the pay range for our current planner move from range 17 to the pay range 18 for a planner 2. On the parks maintenance technician, we have one individual in this position in the parks department. And again, we're looking at a technician 1, 2, and 3, the 3 being a lead, project lead, or a crew member lead. We did something very similar with the water operators, created a lead position in the streets operators and sewer. In public works, created a lead position. And so again, those ranges 12, 13, and 14, and similarly looking at moving this current individual from pay range 13 into the lead position of pay range 14. So any questions on this? We've done a similar job comparison study with other cities of our size in Utah County, and these ranges are applicable to other similar level positions. So.
How's the workforce, Adam? I know we had a rush a while back. We did some quick, decisive action.
Yeah.
How's it been the last?
I think it's been fairly good. We continue to have some level of turnover. You guys know that we lost Hannah to Springville, and in fact, we had our parks maintenance technician, Jake, applied for a job and received an offer recently for a position. I think if this is approved tonight, that will help keep him here. And so we're struggling a little bit in public works. We had some turnover, I think, in our water division in the last 4 or 5 years. We've had 7 employees that have moved in and out. And so we're the majority of that, what we're getting feedback on, they're moving for more money. And so it's money or opportunity. And so with Hannah's move, it was a supervisory role. And I think with this, some of these other things that we've seen at Public Works, it's just dollars. And so this and then this next item that we're talking about tonight, we'll get to that, but continuing to look for ways that we can help tighten things up anywhere we can that we feel are reasonable and be competitive. So,
Great job. Way to think outside the box. I like these opportunities. Any comments from our public?
Turnover is expensive. Incremental raises like this can actually save us money.
Well said. Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to close the public hearing?
I will motion to close the public hearing.
Ben? Motion from Van, second from Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would kind of make a comment as the interest rates continue to climb, projected that that's going to occur still.
Yeah.
I think it will impact the labor market. Yeah. How long that will take, I don't know, but it will hopefully level things out a little bit so that it's to reduce that jumping all over for the $1.50.
Well, and often in a recession, in a deeper recession, people return to safer jobs, which oftentimes government jobs are considered maybe a little more safe, higher benefits, versus chasing the money around a little bit. So
It'll be a thing to watch for certain.
And we've got such a great set of standards here for somebody. It's very alluring for people to be here with us. So I'll make a motion when we're ready.
Okay, please, Randy.
Make a motion to approve the employee pay range recommendation for the planner and parks technician positions as presented.
Motion from Randy.
I'll second.
Second from Mike. Sorry, barely beat you, Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. We'll continue on to our final public hearing along the lines of employment as well.
I'll make a motion.
Randy
open.
motions.
I'll second.
Daryl gets his second in, and we'll open a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So in this item, along these same lines of compensation, we've had a few inquiries from both new employees and those that we've been trying to attract and haven't been able to bring in through some openings. Our vacation accrual rate It's been, did a study there and found that we are lagging the market compared to a lot of other cities. So I included in your packet on page 115, this was a survey. We had 26 different cities respond, and then we included the state of Utah and Alpine School District. And what we are looking at in our current policies, it jumps every 10 years. There is an increase in the annually accrued vacation time. As we surveyed these other cities, most other cities are making moves in accrued time within a couple of years and then making 5-year bumps. And so we were really about 10 years behind the majority of other cities as far as when employees would reach certain milestones. So what we are looking at with this is a recommendation from our current, this is for non-exempt employees, so not department heads, some of our other leadership or professional positions like engineers, our lieutenant, a few other positions. This doesn't change anything with some of those exempt positions. So this is line workers, non-exempt individuals, moving from, instead of waiting 10 years before they get more than 80 hours vacation, it would be after 2 full years. So the start of the 3rd year, they would move to 96 hours. Start of their 6th year, they would move to 120, and then start of their 11th year, 160. And this is, again, based on the averages that we've seen in some other entities. For other exempt employees, other than department heads, the only change is the number of years that it would take to accrue the certain increment there. For exempt employees, department heads that are executive level, there's no change. So then also with this, there's in our policy manual a few wording changes and clarifications. We currently don't limit the number of vacation hours, and we're just adding that verbiage in there as far as how much somebody can accrue. And then what we would like to propose is a vacation buyback option. And this came to mind, if you recall recently, we looked at some options to tweak our overtime policy so that individuals were getting the comp vacation time accrued instead of that paid overtime. For a few individuals, dollars is all that they're looking at. And so this would be an opportunity if they're getting accumulated vacation time that they could turn this in at the end of the year and cash out that vacation time.
Is there a reason why it's only in November?
Ease of
just consolidating the clerical
making
stuff?
it one time. We currently have a sick leave buyback if you've reached so many years. With the sick leave buyback right now, you would take no sick time for 3 years before you're even eligible. And so it takes several years for employees to reach that benchmark, but that's paid in November. It's been kind of a nice, almost like a Christmas bonus for those that get it. And so it was just ease of administration.
If there was a financial need in a family, is there a way to have an exception to that? If there was some medical stuff and somebody needed it earlier in the year, or, some sort of an emergency?
I'm happy to draft that in there if you're okay with that.
I'm comfortable with other than someone has to make that decision.
Yeah, it would probably be me, so I'm comfortable with that. I don't think that would get abused.
No. What do we allow for rollover on vacation? Is there any?
So we don't have a cap currently, and so I've got employees that use every minute, and they're always waiting for the next accrued few hours. And then some employees, I've literally got an employee with 800 hours of vacation, and the guy never takes time off, and no, but it's in his department, and so.
Okay, here's a dumb bunny question, but as you pay off the accrued amount, it's at the rate which it was earned at?
It is the rate that they are currently at when they take the time. And so this is actually, I don't know if I mentioned this in my staff report, but this is an opportunity financially. I think it will benefit the city because they may cash out at a lower pay rate on their pay scale. And so if they cash out vacation but yet they're not at the top of their pay range, we are paying them for that time at a cheaper rate. Whereas for like this individual that has hundreds of hours, when that person retires, this is owed time, and so we pay out that vacation time at retirement. And so is their full amount at
Not a discount.
there's not. And there's a couple cities that responded that they capped it, but that was not out of those 26 cities that we got responses from. I think there was only 2 that said they had a cap. And so that's not common. That sounds like it is a huge amount of hours, but that is not the norm. Most people are using and have a balance of vacation time, but it's not excessive. And so
The encouragement would be to have them use it, because then they're refreshed and ready to
better
come back to
life
work.
balance, I agree.
Yeah, that's maybe my one worry with this is, does this incentivize people to not take vacations? And I think that's an important thing to do, like Daryl just said.
So this does say that the employees may not sell back vacation leave hours that would take them below the 120-hour balance. And so we were trying to keep that in mind of, hey, you got to have some time off, and you can't just sell everything. And we're not going to.
I think you'd agree those that are going to take it are going to take it. It's not going to be an incentive for them not to take it if they're prone to taking it anyway.
Culture, policy, whatever you want to call it, how do you feel like we are as an organization in taking time off, getting approvals? Are there people who, because there's so much leeway to kind of come and go as you please in different responsibilities, that are taking a day here and there, or taking off, coming in for an hour and then leaving for the rest of the day?
I don't feel like that's abuse. What is a problem is water department is the one that comes to mind, where they've had a lot of turnover, don't have the experience in some employees, and so it's maybe the opposite of these individuals are making the call that I can't take time off, and they're not asking. And so I'm concerned about a couple individuals getting burned out. And so I don't feel like there's any abuse, though.
And with us increasing vacation time, there's a process in place of individuals requesting time off
Yes.
from their supervisor. Supervisors feel entitled and empowered to say no if it just
Absolutely.
doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my question. If we do the emergency thing, where they come in, they say, we've got a medical emergency or whatever it might be, is it their supervisor that makes that determination, or I'd like to see that specified who makes that?
That would be myself as the personnel director. And so there's some other similar policies where if somebody needs to take FMLA time, or if there's some other sick leave, if somebody's out of sick leave and they have an emergency come up, they can actually request donated sick leave. That's in our current policies. So employees would gift sick leave to an individual. So I'll craft something like that, and I think that will work well.
How about the Monday after a BYU football?
I think we're okay. So there was a lot of sorrow there, wasn't there? But how do you feel about this?
I love it.
Okay.
Good all the way around.
Yeah, get on board. Any public comment?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, motion.
Second.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, we'll look for a motion unless there's any other comments.
I'll make that motion to approve Resolution 2022-18-R with the employee compensation policies and vacation accrual option.
Motion from Daryl.
Do we need to add in there with the language for the emergencies?
Yeah, if you want to make that part of your motion, and within the policy manual, I can make some tweaks, and with your okay, I'll go ahead and draft that and include that in these amended changes. So.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, so motioned. Kathy, if you'll make that look right on the minutes, that's our intent, is to allow Adam to do that.
Do we have a second? Did you second?
We haven't had a second.
I'll second it.
Second from Randy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, didn't think so.
Thank you for your support of our employees. I want you to know, I feel Lindon City is very well taken care of. We have a good benefit package, and things like this really make a difference, and so, thank you.
And wherever, I also feel like wherever we are potentially lacking, we look at it and we look at it swiftly. So, and I think our staff our employees are benefited by the fact that we're very proactive.
Good job, Adam.
Thanks.
Thank you. We had a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Seconded by Mike.
Jerry.
Thanks. 39 minutes late.
Yes, Mary Anderson.
And Maxine, yeah, the double.
I haven't seen that happen before, so I think we're okay. Have a good night. See you later. Yeah, see ya.